Archives, the only podcast going over the complete history of Australian Survivor from Whalers Way to the present day. We have an amazing episode for you today. I'm so excited for this. It is going to be an absolute blast, I can already tell you that, because I'm staring at a bunch of faces. They're all looking fantastic, and we're all going to join together and make this a fantastic episode. I'm going to start off by saying that my name is Ben Waterworth, and I am literally the only person on this call that has either never played Survivor or never been outside in a Survivor environment, so I'm feeling a little bit awkward right now.
You should be feeling a little bit awkward, Ben, because I'm feeling awkward as well. We've got a Zoom reunion right here. We've got 5 Kadena members. I'm going to say I'm the 6th Kadena member because I wish I was on Kadena. So 6 Kadena members. We've got 3 Tapara members. And of course, the host, the original host of Australian Survivor, Lincoln House. It's going to be a great reunion here. A lot of these people haven't seen each other for nearly 20 years. So it's going to be a special little reunion show we've got tonight.
It is indeed. It is indeed. And we didn't go into this planning to do this. This was kind of something you kind of conducted a couple of weeks ago in your mind, and here we are, and wow, this is happening right now. So you kind of alluded to a few people on the line, so I'm going to go around and introduce everybody individually here so they can all get their moment in the sun at the beginning of the episode. Let's start with the man you just mentioned, Matt. The esteemed host, the fearless leader of Season 1 of Australian Survivor, Whalers Way, Mr. Lincoln Howes. Lincoln, welcome back to the program. It's great to see you.
Thank you, guys. Good to see you too. Always a pleasure.
It's exciting to have you here. I feel like, I feel, again, awkward. I shouldn't be hosting this. You're used to dictating these guys and telling them what to do, right?
No. It's all yours. But, you know, my daughter said to me that we are the OG, and I didn't even know what that meant. But I thought it was old guard, but it's not original gangster, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say, I'm wearing the old school Survivor shirt right now, so I'm kind of feeling very old school. So is Naomi. Look at this. Oh, look at this. Come on. Deb, I hope you've got yours on. Maybe she'll have to find it. Not quite. I'll introduce you right now, Deb. I've said your name. Deb Peart is back from Kadena, original Famous 5 member. Deb, welcome back.
Thanks, guys. It's great to be here, and it is so lovely to see all these faces.
Isn't it just? Look at them all, these beautiful, pretty young faces, 21-year-olds all on the show today. We also have joining us from Kadena as well, Naomi Russell. Naomi, welcome back. Go Blues.
Yes, hello, thank you.
Welcome back. Yes, I shouldn't say about Hawthorn because Siona's going to start rubbing salt in the wounds here, Naomi. I really need to be careful about that, right? We beat North Melbourne a week ago, so we'll stick to that win, right?
We were going very well.
We should give a special mention to Naomi too, because she's in lockdown right now down in Victoria. So special mention.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Yes, it's all fairly quiet down here.
Yeah, it's a perfect reason why she's on the show today.
Nothing better to do than this, huh?
Exactly. You know, what are you doing today? Nothing. I may as well talk to these people I haven't talked to in 20 years. Why not? Joining us also, and appropriately right next to Naomi here, maybe we can get some more truth out of them today. I don't know. It's a man who loves talking about Survivor. He just won't leave us alone. It's Craig Abbott. Craig, welcome back to Australian Survivor Archives.
Hey, Ben. Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me again. Let's see if we can beat that 3.5 hours tonight.
Yeah, Siona's beaten you now, so you've got to try and get that record back.
4 hours, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Also joining us, a pleasure, our very first contested interview many, many weeks ago, but the esteemed first boot from Season 1 Australian Survivor, Lucinda Walters. Lucinda, welcome back to the show.
Howdy. And I hope I set the tone for the rest of your interviews.
You did.
And Lucinda.
And did you have to edit anything that I said?
No, you had the fun sound bites that I got to add at the end. Gee,
really?
Winkies, all those kind of good
I
sounds.
better hear a Jeepers Creepers and a Hell's Bells from you today, tonight, Lucinda.
Yes, that's on the cards.
Can't take the country out of the girl.
Never. Also joining us, the first boot from Tapara. The one, the only, Mr. Jeff Brown. Jeff, pleasure to have you back on the show.
Hi, guys. Hi to half of you, the other half.
Come on, Jeff.
The baby shit yellow people on the line right now, Jeff?
No, actually, that's what it used to be. Now it's all those bastards who voted me off.
Well, you've only got 2 of them.
I better warn everyone here. I know it's been 19 years. Jeff's never got over being voted out first out of Taparas.
I've got all their names written on my wrist.
Yes. It helps
Tattooed on there.
Yeah, it helps when you work for the police too. That kind of that's why Matt got so many of you guys on. He's a cop. Well, one of the people that did vote you out, the one, the only, my favourite in the whole world, because I'm her young warrior now. The esteemed runner-up of season 1 of Australian Survivor, Sciona Brown. Sciona, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. Nice to be here. And yes, I didn't vote you off, Jess, so I hope I'm still in your good books.
You didn't vote me off.
Yeah.
You and Kate.
I didn't think Sciona voted for you, Jeff.
Hey, you think I don't remember? It's tattooed
On the hit list.
I often wonder if Lance had voted differently, how the game would have turned out. And I also...
I better go.
The other thing, I shouldn't say this because it's hurtful. I reckon Craig would have won if he was on Tapara. I reckon Craig would have won.
That's a big call.
Won Tapara. And
that's a big call.
And I would have loved to see Lance vote different. And I think Lance might have been. Anyway.
You're opening a can of worms already, Jeff.
You've been thinking about this a lot.
Controversial.
I'm telling you, Lincoln, 19 years. Are you not believing me? He's been thinking about this for 19 years.
And making a list.
Yeah, checking it twice, all that kind of stuff.
Are you crossing them off as they go, as you get rid of them, Jeff? Got them tattooed on there?
I was keeping away from that.
Also joining us, the birthday boy, 21 years young today, the nicest man on the planet Earth, Mr. Lance Brooks. Lance, welcome back to the show.
Absolutely a pleasure to be here, and I've enjoyed immensely. Listening to everybody's stories. Isn't it fascinating to hear other people's perspectives in depth of their
Absolutely, yeah.
It's really fascinating. Actually, I've really enjoyed it. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, and it's funny it's taken this long for us to find all that stuff out.
Only, yeah, 20 years, right? What else can we find out tonight? This is what we're really going to get to the bottom of it. I will say too, David Haas is around. He's here and then not here, and here and not here. So expect him to pop up randomly at some point. Matt, you're getting very excited to seeing his face once more.
He's an IT guy. He's got connectivity issues. We know that. So he maybe he forgot to charge his phone up to 100%. This can happen to IT people every now and then.
Craig's so excited to be able to talk to David. So, we need to get him back here. I mean, Craig, you've been building this up for 18, 19 years.
Yeah, I'm a bit intimidated. I'm shaking in my boots here. Thank God.
Can I just say too, Lance, so one of the things I've loved about covering this season is you had told the story about how you had lost your original Tapara buff and that one of your kids had taken it. It turned out afterwards, after all, you did have it all along. You found this old treasure chest of memorabilia you had from the show, and you found all this stuff, including your original Tapara buff that it wasn't long gone. It was actually in the cupboard in a box.
Yeah, we've moved a few times over recent years, and not over recent years, but over the years, and it wasn't until you guys made me think, I thought, God, it must be something somewhere. And it was fantastic. I showed you on a little video there one day.
Yeah.
And a couple of photos, and it was fantastic. I mean, it's been, and I'm sure we're all the same.
And he put these bloody things on.
Yeah, I'll get mine in a second. It's such a, it's interesting listening to you, Sciona, as well. I mean, you said you hadn't, we've all had such a rich experience, and you've sort of parked it there and gone on with life. But
exactly, yeah.
You have sort of brought back some incredible, everybody knows it's such a unique thing, and just have had the pleasure of enjoying going through it again. And as Jeff said, or you think, oh God, these mistakes, but I don't know. It's just been a really wonderful. I've really enjoyed it immensely, and thanks to Matt and Ben, because you're so passionate about it.
Yeah.
I was actually going to apologise almost for awakening the beast in this. As I said, Craig won't leave us alone.
I think it's a good thing. I think everybody needed to talk about it. I do. It's been very cathartic.
Group therapy.
Well,
has anybody got their R.M. Williams jacket left? Anybody
I
still
think
got-
most people that were voted off, though, I think they were voted off. They didn't deserve to go. Because I voted for myself, I knew I was going. Everybody else has probably had a little bit of, like, a lot of thought, probably over 18 years, like, I shouldn't have gone, wasn't my turn to go. I mean, I've heard it from
but I mean, I think we've
people.
learned through some of the interviews after yours, that there were a few people who kind of put their hand up.
Yeah.
Really?
Karen was one of the more shocking ones when she basically all but said that she put her hand up so Naomi that you could stay. I mean, that was kind of a very interesting kind of thing. I mean, is it just a Kadena thing though? I mean, Sciona, Jeff, Lance, did anybody on Tapara ever want to go at any point? I don't think so.
I don't remember anybody wanting to go.
I mean, you had one member literally wanting to kill one of you, so yeah, not quite there. Just want to point out, Jeff. I'm liking the look Jeff's going here right now.
What have you got the mask on for?
So I can say things and no one will know who it was that said it.
We are in a pandemic right now, so
Anonymous. Yeah, there's an anonymous man in the middle.
What's funny about that Kadena voting thing, because it was after listening to Naomi and Craig and you guys and your perspective, like when I left, I had forgotten that, you know what I mean? Like I think it was, and I knew myself that, and I forgot about the paranoia, like there was just so much paranoia out there as well. But I think from my perspective, it was not about wanting to go. It was about realizing that I probably was. So I sort of, you know, and it was funny. I don't recall throwing, you know, myself on the sword, but I can remember having that conversation that you guys talked about, you know. But I think in my heart, I was just going, but you're not going to vote me out. Don't do it. Don't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that was the shock too, Deb. You weren't like that at the start. You seemed like the person who wanted to go all the way and would do whatever it took.
Deb was my pick.
And
Deb was my pick for the winner. Right from the start.
And I mean, we've probably all analysed it and what could have been, and I should have done things differently. And that's like I said in my interview, I hope no one has any regrets. I certainly don't. But I learnt a lot from it. And I've sat there and often wondered why things went the way they did for Kadena versus Tapara. And that's why I found everyone's interviews fascinating, because it's certainly confirmed some things but changed my view on others, and it's been interesting to hear everyone's story.
Was there one in particular, and Craig, I'll direct this to you now, and then other people maybe can chime in with their thoughts, any interview in particular that changed your mind the most in terms of your thought process on how they played the game and kind of your perspective of the game in general with that?
Well, probably hearing Tapara, really, and I thought Katie's interview was fascinating, but what I found funny was, you know, and all jokes aside, I know we're talking about the baby shit yellow and Tapara sucks, or Kadena sucks, but it was interesting to hear Tapara, the way they spoke versus the way we were speaking. There was no difference. There was people like, I think, you know, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in Siona's interview, she said about not wanting to draw attention to herself, flying under the radar. Sophie said it. Lots of people said it. Everybody knew, Kadena knew that you were only as strong as your weakest person, and we all tried to band together and do it. And so did Kadena. And so it was interesting to hear there was really no difference. And I always kind of thought, and I guess what I learned, I made a mistake with the assumption that I just thought that there'd be 16, really, really kill anyone, just do whatever. But then some people said, oh, well, no, it was about an experience and I was interested to see how I went. So it was just interesting to see the dynamics of what people wanted to get out of the experience. And I always just thought, oh, they must have beat us every time, because they had that 5% that they would throw themselves on, like that they would give it all that they could. But then after hearing Katie's, I kind of feel like, you know, no one wanted to lead in Kadena. We all wanted to go under the radar and not, you know, everyone got along really well and we gave it everything we could. But I reckon that 5% that Tapara had was influenced by the likes of Katie. Like, that experience of team and getting people together. And to me, it sounds like Tapara really got fired up before a challenge. And I don't know. That's just, I just found maybe their preparation was just a bit more competitive or something. I don't know.
I think the biggest outward difference between the two tribes was that Kadina really went with the mateship thing, and Tapara said they were, but they weren't right from the start. I mean, Katie, Rob, they were plotting from the beginning, and from the outside you could see that was the difference. I mean, within the tribes. Whether that then, I don't know what that has to do with the fact that you couldn't win challenges, because on paper you guys are physically as able, if not more able, than Tapara. So I don't see how that, unless it is what you talk about, this 5%, mongrel that they had that you guys didn't. But you certainly had an attitude of where, alliance was a dirty word. I mean, this is Survivor, guys.
Yeah, but that's interesting to hear that from the outside, Lincoln, and obviously from behind the camera, because I think that's the difference. I think they wanted it more, and they were playing the game like just that 5% more. It's just that edge. I don't know, but you'll never know. It's just the way it rolled. But I just think
some of those challenges we could have gone either way. It was down to the wire a lot of the time.
Yeah. Well, we were going to
win that first one.
That was out.
Don't talk about the first one.
I think that fire's still trying to get lit.
I don't know
and listening to Sean, and I when I heard Sean, and I just went, "You mean we lost that because you couldn't afford some diesel?"
Is that what it was? I mean,
well, that's what Sean said.
Yeah. Lincoln, you said we were playing as a team. We weren't playing as a team. When we those javelins, I said to everybody on our team, I said, there's only 2 people capable of throwing that javelin that far in our team. So I said, why don't we all the people that can't throw it that far, just run up, grab your javelin, just throw it. Don't take a run up and try to get it. You know you can't. Everybody went, yeah. So what are they? And sure enough, only 2 people could get it, but we wasted all that time. And there it is, me on the cut, just throwing it looked like a fucking dork. Nobody else did it.
Yeah. I'd like to know I'd like to know the process that Channel 9, who actually made the decision about who would be offered a place. Because there was all of the physical tests, that's pretty standard. There were those psych tests that we did, which were, I think there were 3 of them, and one of them was a Myers-Briggs. I don't know what the other 2 were, but one of them was the one that they used to select the survivors for the American series. Then we had an interview with the psych. What was it? What was the sort of combination of things? Was it the psych tests plus the interviews that we did with that panel of producers? I'd be fascinated to know what was the criteria that they applied to select people to do that.
It's a question for Stephen, really. But what I was surprised about was, nothing against Lucinda. But when you said in your interview that you had never watched an episode of Survivor, you didn't have an idea of what the game was about, that you might have to be lie, and because that's not you, and if you'd known that, you probably wouldn't have even applied.
No, I would,
asking me questions about
because my aim wasn't to get on the show. My aim was to get fit, to stop drinking, to stop smoking, and to stop doing any other things that I happen to be doing.
That's very admirable, but I just
I did actually get on.
So why didn't that stuff come up in the process? There's a process of selection, and we all went through it.
That's what I mean. I don't know what the process was. I joined way after that was all decided, and you guys were already chosen.
I remember asking Stephen that, and I know just for myself, Stephen. Apparently, Prue had told me that I almost nearly didn't get selected. They were weighing up between myself and somebody else. And apparently, Stephen, they just said, look, if he's prepared to put himself in a box, he's probably prepared to do anything. And it's that sort of, that's kind of what got me across the line. But I know when I said in my interview, when I got driven back to Whalers Way, Stephen just said, a lot of contestants, not particularly our tribe or anyone else, said a lot of people have not been who we thought they were. Some better, some worse. But he said we weren't going to pick 16 people all the same for obvious reasons. So I think they were just trying to fill spots with just different.
Look, there were a lot of. I know there was a lot of. There was that. There was all kinds of things. I mean, demographic also. You know, they needed older women because, women are the ones that make decisions on television viewing.
But they do that, Megan. They do that for the American series. They have, they're obviously wanting to attract various demographics. You know, the mother with a couple of kids, the buffed, yogi. It's a mixture of our general sort of TV viewing audience, so that you can relate to at least one person in all of that. And I don't agree with you when you mentioned earlier about Tapara, not I guess being close as tribe members. I actually think we were really close. It wasn't until towards the end when it started to get a bit cutthroat about.
But I mean, in the planning, you and Rob and Katie, and there was a level of planning there early on in Tapara that wasn't. And that's playing the game. I mean, I'm not saying you guys weren't as close as ever, because you do get close to people when you're out there. And probably, Katie and Rob were very close. It's not necessarily that. I just think that Tapara, actually, it was stated that they didn't want to play the game like nasty and let's be all mates. And I just don't think you can play this game that way.
And that's the difference, I think, that in terms of the audience, the numbers of people that actually got involved with that first Survivor was that the American series, as I understand it, and I wasn't, all that across it, but there was that sort of that tension and that cutthroaty type approach to things, personalities clashing strongly. And we didn't get that, in several times during the series. One tribe or the other would show unusual support, not in terms of the Australian mateship that we all share, but I think it was one of the challenges where we won some time on our phones for families, and Kadina had just been knocked down, and we went across as a tribe and said, look, guys, we know you've we know you've had it tough. We're going to share the time that we've got with you guys. Now, that would never happen on an American series. Do you know what I mean? So there wasn't that ruthless, cutthroat aggression or tension between tribe members, or even the two tribes.
Craig's frothing at the bit there, because Craig, you were wishing that was happening out there, as you were saying before, about how you were hoping that you would have players all like that way as well. So I can imagine you would agree, kind of, with Siona's point there.
Yeah, I do. I realised there was a TV show, but I didn't really care about. I just thought that everybody would cut anyone's throat, stab anyone in the back, and like I said, the fact that there was friendships within Kadina and all that sort of stuff, they were alliances. But we were trying to not cut each other's throat. We were trying to work together, and we had the same philosophy as Tapara, like, let's go through with the majority. I mean, that's everyone's objective. But I still don't really understand why it went down the way it did, but yeah.
Just really quickly, Deb and Matt, sorry guys to interrupt. I really feel I need to quickly just say that David Haas is with us quickly all of a sudden. Yeah. He's driving right now, and I just wanted David to get a chance to quickly say hello.
Well, Ben, that's what I was just about to say. We've got David Haas in the house right now, so it's a perfect time for him to arrive, because you're talking about people not getting along and everything about the tribes. What was it, David, you might want to answer this, but Craig and David, like, you two would have made the ultimate team, but you never wanted to work with each other.
I was thinking that too, Craig.
Tell us
David,
right now. I would love to get both. We'll start with David. What was it that you guys just couldn't work together?
I think we could. I think the cast we're all too nice for a start.
Yeah, and that's what I think.
And that didn't make for good TV.
No, that's what I thought too, David.
And I just think that Craig had it I know he might disagree, but I think he had it good because the girls really liked him. Now, I mean, if I was in his position, I would have probably done the same. But I think in that way he had it good. There's no need to get together with me and try to do anything because he's got it made. As far as I'm concerned, he had it made. So it made my job really difficult.
Is that why you opted out?
I went out and were on the piss the night before, Dave.
But because he had it good and that he could write it out. I mean, he could when you've got a good thing going, you keep it going. There's no need to. And I knew that. And at the end, I thought, well, I'm going to have to shake things up a bit because the status quo, the way it's going now, I'm out of here. Some of the girls will be out of here. Craig will get through. It actually panned out. I think I had a conversation with Deb and it panned out exactly the way I said to Deb it would pan out. And I wouldn't have done any different if I was Craig. I wouldn't have joined me. I think he did the best he could do, and I think it worked for him. The problem is it put him in a less when they got to the merge, it made it more difficult for him, I think. But at least he got there.
Craig, what do you have to say to all of that?
Well, there's not much to say. I think that's sort of I think to me that's the difference between Katina and Tapara right there. Is I don't think, let's say if I had an alliance with the girls, well, I think I told you, I felt like there was no doubt, I think like Sciona and Rob, Naomi and I were like that from the start. So it was just easy. I just knew I could trust Naomi and I didn't have to do anything. I didn't need to convince her. We didn't need to strategize. I think we just knew we had each other's back. And I thought that was the same for Deb and Sylvan. And I always thought Karen was on their side. So I was very interested to hear Karen's interview. That was quite a shock. Some of the things there were a shock to me. But when it came to David and Tim, David and I never spoke. So I don't know if he was strategizing, if he was aligning with people. But I wouldn't have, if I was David, I wouldn't have sat there and made an assumption and said, oh, well, he's with the girls and he's got it easy. I wish Tim had have spoken to me about alliances, or I should have spoken to Tim. It's not for them to come to me. But no one was leading, no one was playing the game. Probably not until they felt vulnerable. So yes, if I had a good alliance with Naomi, I felt comfortable in that. But it seemed like no one spoke. It was forbidden.
But if anyone had said in Kadena, if anyone had mentioned the word alliance, they would have been voted out immediately. Because alliance just wasn't talked about.
I disagree actually with that.
Yeah.
Really?
I think we all, because of the way that everything was going, we lost one, we lost another and another. It was really about self-preservation. It was about positioning yourself as the best.
And your whole game would have been different if you had a couple of immunity challenges.
Yeah,
that's why I see the difference with Katie. Kate, like the Tapara were trying to come together, regardless of their alliances. They were rah-rahing, they were going in as a team, and I just don't think we did that. And to me, it was that 5%. It was self-preservation. It was like, if Lucinda put her hand up, well, shit, okay, well, that makes life easier. And then, like I said, no one spoke. The fact that Tim went, I was completely shocked. So it was just weird the way it unfolded. But I agree with Naomi. If David had have come up and said, hey, let's form an alliance or do anything, I wouldn't have voted him out for that. He'd be playing the game.
Well, you were intimidated. You were intimidated by David because he was in IT, right?
Yeah, yes. Apparently.
Can you hear me?
We can.
No. David, would you have rather been on Tapara?
Yes. And I really like our group of people. Look, everyone's so nice and they're a lovely bunch of people. And what I'm saying is not malicious or anything. I was just that was my experience out there. But everyone's so nice, and I just felt like I watched it when it came out. I haven't watched it recently, but I do recall watching it and noting that Tapara, from the get-go, were talking about the game, and I really felt that we weren't allowed to talk about the game. And why did I think that? Because a lot of the conversation was, we're Australian, we're different, we don't need to play like that, we don't need to be that way, we can talk about the vote we're going to cast. I thought it was crazy, but
that's what was coming back to the production, was that the Para have gone all mateship crazy, and they think they're Aussies and they don't be nasty, and they're not American nasty people, so they're loving each other.
To speak about the game, I thought, mate, that's a death sentence. Forget about it, because of all the other talk around it, which was, we're different, we're not like that. So you get enough of that talk going on in camp, and you're really sticking your neck out. And Craig's right. I only really discussed the game with say Deb or Tim or anyone when I felt at the end I had to. There was no option. Had to, because the way this is going, this is not working.
Lincoln, I just want to quickly add, you've used the word mateship twice now, mate. Well, one more strike, you're out. Just maybe open to Sciona, Jeff and Lance. How would you handle David on Tapara? I don't know who we would swap out, but I would be intrigued. Like, would either of you wanted to have worked with David? Do you think kind of things would have been different having someone like David with that mindset over Tapara?
Lance, I'll just jump in quickly, Lance. Is it true that there was a possibility that at the last second you two were actually swapped? For some reason, I think that you were maybe meant to be on Kadina.
I was going to ask Lincoln this, because I was told post the show by one of the production team, and I don't know if it's right, and also there was something on my bag that I was originally going to be in Kadina and David was going to be in Tapara. Were you aware of that at all, Lincoln?
No, I wasn't.
Prue told me that, actually. One of the producers, Prue told me. Yeah. And he said that's why I didn't have a name on my bag. Everyone else had a name on their bag.
Same with me, Dave. We had same thing.
Wow. You were given the wrong buffs, is what I was told.
So that's actually been confirmed. So I'd been told, and I never had a chance to actually double check that. So
basically,
I heard the same.
Swapped. Wow.
Lance, the problem there is Lance is too nice as well. That would have been no good.
Can I just say something firstly?
But he would have been right when he said there's no alliances going on in Kadina.
To the end. Couple of
alliances were there. What?
Firstly, picking up on Shona said, and a little bit with Jeff, and answering Craig's question, I think the Para play, when we got to get to there for the game day, which was every third way, I think we combined very well. You had you did have two professional athletes, but a whole lot of mixed skills as well. You know, like, I don't think there was too many weaknesses, but everybody played, like, regardless of all the alliances and things like that. And sure, there was a group of people who were playing much harder and much smarter than some others. But when the game day came, we competed pretty well.
Look at that.
A little point.
See that picture?
Yep. Yeah.
You can't see it because it's a bit small.
Arms in arms.
See all those faces. The arm in arm, camaraderie, going to war together. There's only two people smiling. I don't know the humans of that. That's Katie and I, but everyone going to battle together. And that's how we were every time. And the person I give credit for that is Katie. She wanted us to all have a drink of water before we went. Water gives you energy. She'd go through it all. We were, as a tribe, we were pretty well fed. We had the best food in the world, actually, because Sciona was always out scabbing something to feed us with.
Always preparing.
So we always ate well. We always had water. We always motivated. We played for each other. We didn't play individuals. We played a team game. And I think that's a really great picture. That's, for those who haven't seen it before, that's the very first picture taken once the game had started.
Can we Photoshop David's head into that so he is officially a Tapara member? Can we?
And I'll just say one other thing, because it's sort of quite relevant to what we were talking about before about the selection process. You probably all remember when we got through a certain stage, I think the top 200, we had to fill out like about a 20-odd page sort of personal profile and a whole lot of questions. I don't know if you remember. The last question on that is, what would you not be prepared to do to win Survivor? And I, tongue in cheek, but I did, because I was, going for Lincoln, I actually filled out, I would not be prepared to lie, cheat, or hurt anybody's feelings. And of course,
How did you get it?
but I did write that. And so you would wonder, how the hell did I get through to the next stage?
Absolutely.
It was early days of Survivor and things like that. And so when I got to remember when we actually were in that at Ridges, and on the last day, if we were all there, obviously, we had that little interview with the panel of the producers.
Yeah.
So I went into the room, and it was David, one of the producers. He said to me, "What the fuck are you writing that down for?" I used the word "if." I'm sorry, but it was sort of quite a charged sort of comment. He wanted to have a go at me, and we had this quite spirited debate. But he said, "There's people been in this room for today, sitting on that same chair. If I said jump out that window, and we were on about the second floor, they'd jump straight out the window to be on the show." So, yeah. So I suppose. The point being, they do want to pick a series of profiles, and particularly in those days. So they're not all going, Craig, for the hard person who's supposedly going to look like they're going to go hard all the way.
Naomi.
I feel, I don't know. And I think
I just want to touch on that and going back to something that you said, Lincoln. I was also completely shocked that so many people hadn't watched Survivor before, or had only watched, a tiny bit. That not everyone there was a super fan like I was, and desperate to play and to win. So, I found that really, really quite interesting.
Well, I just
Particularly
don't know
then
how you
too.
play the game. I don't know just how you play the game if you've never watched it before.
Yeah.
That's it. But I also think, and just a little bit of a rebuttal perhaps to Jeff and David, I think you can be nice and play the game. I don't think you have to be one or the other.
No, but when you've got a whole group that's really, really nice, I think that we're genuinely a nice group of people, and I think that maybe affected the way the game.
But
panned out.
Also how it was played back then.
And he won it.
Yeah, but it's so clearly different. I'm actually in the middle at the moment of rewatching all 40 seasons, American seasons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. It's all of my other goals are out the window. I figure I can achieve this one.
Yeah.
But looking back at seasons 1 through 4, and particularly Marquesas, which was fascinating for me because that was obviously on air when our season was on, so never got to see it at the time.
Neither did anyone else in Australia, Naomi. It's fine.
Yeah, and that's another reason they hated us.
But it was played very similar to, in a lot of ways.
I agree
that we did.
I agree with you, Naomi, and I can see. Well, I can feel like for Deb and Naomi, and so when David's saying that, and Jeff, I defend Kadena. Yes, you can be nice and you can be competitive. I do think I agree with Jeff though. I feel like that Katie stuff might have been that 5% when it came time for the actual challenge. That may have. I just think there was that little edge, but. For Deb, for Naomi, for myself, I think we still wanted it as bad as anyone else. And
Craig,
we weren't kidding. No, but we weren't kidding ourselves that we weren't, like when David said no one was playing the game or doing all of that, we were playing it differently. I was playing the game. I had an alliance with Naomi. Deb had an alliance with Sylvan. That's what I felt right from the start, from day one. But I never knew where Tim or David stood. And because people didn't want to talk about it, you just let it go. But I don't recall everyone saying you cannot talk about this. Everyone was being nice, knowing that if we were stronger together as a team, we'd be more competitive. But I never thought for a second that David or Tim or Lucinda weren't talking. They just weren't talking to me.
Deb,
when
I'd
you
love
said
to
when
get
you said before you were shocked though that Tim went. Why were you shocked? I don't get that. Did you not?
Because
know
I
that?
would never have voted him out. We never spoke about who was going, and I thought
Really?
Tim was someone like. I think we lacked a leader. I mean, I remember when Get Kicked Out, a few
No,
people.
you just
said,
wander off to tribal council and just.
That one I remember.
yeah.
That one we had we discussed at the start that this was going to be an organic vote. Let's just see where the votes go.
Don't say
for
that.
that one.
And that was the problem, you see.
Yeah. But why the hell? And then it made me think, well, why the hell did they vote Tim out? Like, who's got an alliance here?
That's what
We all lose. We all lose by that.
Well, particularly the next challenge with wood chopping aspect of it too.
Yeah.
So that's all very fascinating, because if what you're saying on the one hand is people did or should have watched the American series before they put their hand up, before they went out there and competed on our series, it doesn't sound like even if they did watch the American series, it made any impact on how they behaved when they got actually out there on location and started playing the game. Because the American, I didn't watch, it was a different era too. I mean, these days you can get digital copies of just about everything, but, it was a video copy of the programs. Some people, tape over previous TV programs. I don't know how easy it might have been to have got hold of stuff and watched it, but it obviously didn't change or didn't have an impact on how, I'm generalising here, most of Kadina actually ended up playing the game, because if you'd watched it, you certainly didn't seem to have leveraged that information, that knowledge in your own game. Would that be fair to say, or is that?
Well, if everyone's saying we're Australian, we don't play like that here, when we don't do that here, then that knocks it straight on the head.
And could I also
Who
say
said that?
I agree with Dave. There was a bit of that. I remember people, and Tim was a big instigator of that. That it's like, I remember sitting around the fire with him one night, and it was all about the hardship of the fact that, I think it was in the first couple of days, and we had no fire and no water and no food, and it was just sort of solidifying this idea of hardship, and therefore we're going to stick together. But the other thing too that was going on, which I don't know if you guys remember, I don't know if this happened in Tapara, but there was a real elusiveness about not talking to the producers, and it was an us versus them thing. And that in itself is problematic, because that really, you've got to open up, and I remember having Sylvan getting upset with me often because I would say stuff. And I was like, well, Sylvan, it's true. And that's part of what we're doing here. We're playing a game, and otherwise we're not making television. So
yeah, but see, Deb, I didn't give a shit about the TV. I was there for $1 million, and I didn't trust them. They were, to me, another...
You trust them. That's like it's a construct. It's not a. It's
because
not...
I felt like they could give away any of my game plan or anything to you, or subtly say a question, which they have admitted that they kind of do that. That they're there to make a TV show, and I get that, but I'm there for the money. So I opened up more to them towards the end, but at the same time, I didn't want to risk $1 million. Because some producer's going to whisper in your ear my game strategy.
I sort of feel like if you're going to go on a game like Survivor, and I think and it's obviously evolved. We've talked about that a lot. But even if you look at the first Channel 10 season, it had very similar strains of mateship and all of that sort of stuff. So it wasn't as interesting, because of that. I think if you're going to play the modern game, you have to be as astutely aware of what they're going to try and do, on top of the fact that you've got to play,
100%. I've never watched any Survivors since, just for no other reason than life just happens. But it sounds like a very different game. And that's what I was saying to Matt and Ben is I don't know. I'd love to play the game, but if you're on there because you're making television and you get on there because you've got 300,000 followers and you're trying to say something funny to get your 5 seconds, I'm not interested in that.
Well,
there's a lot of that goes on these days.
The interesting thing that I think kind of we've really discovered a lot in analysing the episodes, and this could be a question for the Tapara guys, because obviously you played very closely with Rob, but thoughts in general is that Rob had a game that could hold up to today. He ticked all the boxes socially, physically. He was well liked. He had contingency plan after contingency plan of people that he was working with constantly out there. And to this day, I think the only person you can compare Rob to in Australian Survivor is David Jeanette, you know, the Golden God. You know, they're the two that I think kind of have this complete game. So for as much shit as your season will get for lack of strategy, or, you know, you were there with the M word and things like that, I think that Rob's game stands up 20 years later as one that I think could win this game again.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, absolutely. I mean, but as what Sciona was saying before, and what Naomi's saying about you can't win this game. You can win this game by being nice. Well, you can up to a point, but sooner or later you've got to ditch someone, and someone has trusted you to the end.
I 100% agree with that, and I don't think, but I don't like the idea of just labelling someone as either a player or nice. You're too nice.
No.
We created a culture of niceness. Our whole team was nice. We created a culture of niceness. That with the producer was for the second vote. So after Lucinda voted for herself, and then we had to have the second vote, and the consensus was, because everything was agreed upon in our nice culture, that we had to we were going to discuss the vote.
Okay, prior. So Lucinda was voted out first. Now, Lucinda, you were pretty vocal in that first episode. You were really prepared to take a leadership role.
I wasn't flying under the radar.
No,
I wasn't there to win. I was there to be myself.
But having you go first, did that ultimately hurt Kadina? Because sometimes you need someone that's not scared to speak up. Look at Sciona. Sciona wasn't scared to speak up. Sciona got to the end, and Tapara dominated. Was possibly that the missing link? That yes, you were a little outspoken, but that can help a tribe.
Well, as Craig said, I don't think you guys had a leader. Straight up. No one's going to put their hand up. No one wants to put their head up and kind of, fly above the radar. And that can be hard. It's a real balance. But if everybody's flying under the radar, then it makes it hard.
Everybody was under the radar. Every single person I felt in my team was under the radar except for me.
I know we talked a lot about it individually with each of you in your respective interviews, but throwing it out to the three Tapara guys here, because I would love to hear your thoughts in front of the Kadina guys. But I mean, just general take again on, and what were you thinking in terms of why they weren't winning? Like, kind of, was it kind of some of the things that Dave was talking about? Were they too nice? Like, things like that. Like, what sort of things do you remember being talked around the Tapara camp about? Wow, these guys suck. What is going on over there?
Did we talk like that? I mean, I don't think we did. But I think we knew who was strong in Kadina and who wasn't. But that didn't matter one iota to us, because we had no bearing over that, really. And we were just lucky that the challenges that we did win were immunity challenges, not the reward challenges. And so there's a fair bit of luck there. We probably won the same number of challenges. The teams were probably both exactly even, except the coin fell the wrong way for Kadina sometimes. But let me just say, I don't think I was terribly nice. I didn't
go the whole episode out of that.
Do you want to give us any of that, Jeff? The go to Tapara, any of that kind of bring back some memories?
It works, though, doesn't it? Tell me that sledging doesn't work. but I thought that niceness wasn't necessarily a factor where we were. I think that, I didn't like Rob at all, couldn't stand the man. Oh. And I'll be honest with you and say I don't think Katie liked him. But we recognised we weren't voting in him or keeping him around, or I didn't keep him around for that long. I wasn't there. But we didn't do that because he was nice or we got on or anything. He was kept around solely for his strength and his strategy. So was Katie.
What was it about him that annoyed you? What was it about him that was grating on people?
He I guess I can say everything else. I thought he was a terrible liar, and he didn't disguise his lies. They were just blatant falsities, and he was making promises that were clearly ridiculous. promising people season tickets to the Hawthorn Football Club, promising dinners and things.
That's not a promise you want to hear, though, right? Sorry, Sciona, to block your ears, but like if someone's offering me tickets to Hawthorn, I'm going to vote them off quicker.
But he did as little work as he could. There was only 1.5 cooks in Tapara, and that was Sciona was the cook, and I would help out. No one else did that kind of work.
Well, Jane did nothing.
Hey, Queen Jane Lincoln, careful.
In all fairness to Lance, he was off doing yoga. It's like.
I think what
That sounds smart to
what
me.
we're talking about here is,
Yeah.
it was stepping up. What we talked about constantly before a challenge, whether the ones we ended up losing and the ones we ended up winning, was going out to battle and how the hell we were going to beat Kadina. It was you come back with tree mail, everybody would hear what the tree mail said. We all had our 2 bobs worth about what it might mean, what sort of challenge it might be, and how we were going to beat Kadina at that challenge. And I think you've got to look at horses for courses. Rob, with all due respect, Jeff, Rob may not have cooked a meal, but, he went out and gave 110% in any challenge, and his strategy was good. He'd been on a football team. He'd been used to playing with and trying to win, AFL games. Same with Katie, Victorian triathlete of some note. It was all about winning, winning, winning. We never gave up for a second when it came to competing.
I think having someone like that on your team, I think it does make a difference. I think what Craig was talking about before, that 5%. People who have been in a team situation and
it's all about winning.
Win.
And I was stunned that Kadina had, and I think there were quite a few people who were stunned when Tim got voted off. It was we discussed it at camp. What were they thinking? Especially as it turned out, and this was just coincidence. The next challenge was one where you needed somebody who knew how to chop wood, but we couldn't figure out why the tribe would have voted Tim off when he was clearly, a big bloke. He was strong and he was, he was out there competing. I think there was some. For me, it comes back to. Sorry.
The ageist.
And don't worry, Sciona. Craig wanted David to go second, so don't worry about that.
Well,
and Sylvan didn't know what he wanted every day, so
after his confession and interview, I thought he should have gone first.
Through the magic of technology, Lance has discovered we can send each other messages on the side here, and has asked me a question, like a written message, about whether they thought about swapping the teams up, like when Kadina was being decimated and it got down to so few left. And they did talk about it. But at that point, I don't think any other survivor had done it.
Africa hadn't. I think it was airing when you were filming from memory. I think we talked about this with Stephen.
Titan. What was his name? Titus.
Titus?
No, Silas.
Silas, yeah.
Yeah, we've got to be careful talking about him.
Bad. He got ripped off.
Yeah, he's had a bit of legal trouble in the last 6 or so months, so we'll step around him carefully. But it was airing when you were filming, and that was the very first time that they had swapped tribes.
Yeah, I know Peter. Stephen thought about it, but Stephen was talking about it. He thought about it, but I just think because it was new ground and we were very much sticking by the rules that had already been set by them, and we just followed their lead on everything.
Well, it's so fascinating, Lincoln, that you say following the rules.
He didn't have any problem coming at the 11th hour and 59th minute and trying a very big switch up with Rob and
that's why it's surprising so much.
Well, that's such a fascinating thing for like Stephen said that they went in blind. They didn't have a rule book. They kind of had to go this way, and yet you can't, on paper, like Sciona, as you were saying, very nearly created the very first final three. And I mean, that was, years away in the US version, and could have done the swaps. I mean, like in hindsight, a what if moment, they do a tribe swap and they do a final three. I mean, that would have been groundbreaking at the time, because we're used to that now.
The tribe swap the show needed the tribe swap. It should have happened. Yeah.
How would Craig, I'd love to hear how you approach a tribe swap. I mean, we see you going into the merge and kind of doing everything you did, but I mean, it's impossible to know where you would have ended up. But I mean, I guess you would relish it. I mean, not just Craig, I guess Naomi, Deb, I mean, Lucinda, if you had stuck around a little bit longer too, David, I mean, any of you could have relished that, but I sort of single you out, Craig, just at the moment, just based on kind of what happened at the merge and, sort of how much.
Well, it would have been like if we'd gone in as a 10 and they did 5 and 5, it would have been fascinating. If they'd split Naomi and I up, I would have been worried. I'm like, shit, here we go again. But would have been a lot of fun.
Do you reckon Sylvan would have known what was going on? Like, would he have just been like, oh, who do I follow? Like, what tribe? Does someone point me in the right direction?
Deb, I'd hope you'd be with Sylvan so you could help him out there.
I need to help him out. Dear Sylvan.
But I just think, like, we can't harp on about them versus us, but the Kadena it was just the dynamics of the group. No one said, you got to vote this way. I don't recall anyone saying you can or can't. I think I assumed everyone was playing the game regardless of what we were saying and forming alliances the same as Naomi and I did. And it just unfolded the way it did. And no one stood up and wanted to say anything different. And I honestly feel like Tapara just, the way they rallied before a challenge, to me, that is that 5%. To me, listening, I don't think they were any better than us, played differently than us. They were definitely doing some strategic stuff from the start, which I assumed we were doing. So I didn't see any difference in that regard. It's just, it was the dynamics of our group, and it's the way it unfolded. And like Jeff said, there are some element of luck. Let's not forget that first challenge. I think we certainly had that 1-1.
But as Jeff said too, I mean, I think that Naomi said, that if you have, the worry of not winning any immunity challenges, you can't be doing much strategizing. You can't alliances go by the by when you're.
It's actual survival. That's what it is. In that moment, it's you're trying to survive the next vote.
Hey guys, I'm sorry. I'm just like Survivor. I'm going to have to be the first one to leave. So good night, everybody.
Lucinda, you voting yourself out again?
I am. I'm sorry.
Lucinda, well, in all seriousness, it's been a pleasure having you back here and kind of chatting. Is there anything quickly you want to say to anyone here on the episode, or share any last minute little things about these guys?
I do want to say, Craig, I would have had your back.
Thank you.
You reminded me of my dad. I said that
Lucinda,
before.
we'll have sometime.
Sorry?
I was in Byron last week, but didn't have your phone number.
Oh, damn it, Janet. Okay.
So we're going.
Yeah, give me a ring.
Can we get one Hell's Bells before you leave?
Oh, Hell's Bells. Really? Okay.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Lucinda.
See you, everybody.
See you,
Bye.
Lucinda.
Bye. Bye, Sciona. Say hi to Donnie for me.
I saw Donnie just this last week while I was in the bush. So he.
Oh, did you? And he's good?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Good. Give him my love. My Facebook's been hacked, so I can't talk to him or do anything.
Catch up offline. We'll catch up offline.
Right. Okay. Cheers. Bye, everyone.
See you
Bye.
later, Lucinda.
I don't know how to turn it off. Oh, yes, I do. There's a leave.
This is what's great about this, because so many people here.
I don't press the screen. I know. I've got to press the.
I'll kick you out, Lucinda. Hang on.
I got it. I got it.
You got it? All right. I don't need to. Tribe has spoken.
Tribe has spoken, yeah.
I was going to say Lincoln could do it one more time, but, there you go. This is what's fascinating about this, is because so many of you guys obviously haven't, had any conversations or seen each other or anything basically since Eddie Maguire was standing in front of you, all those years ago, which is interesting because, Lance, we constantly would mention you were kind of the glue. You were the one that I guess kind of stayed in contact with most of these guys the most. Does it surprise you all that that this kind of did fall apart a bit because, you know, we hear from the US contestants that Borneo, Australian Outback, Africa, these people are still very good friends, you know, in basically the same period of time you are. I mean, is it surprising, upsetting, anything that you guys kind of didn't stay in touch? I'm going to open that to the floor.
Oh, Deb.
I don't know. Sorry, I'm just eating my dinner.
That's right. I appreciate, Matt, that you're doing the proper thing. Everyone's eating their dinner right now. You know, we can just have a dinner party. I like this.
Yeah, I don't know. It was sort of funny. I mean, I always felt close to, you know, Craig and Naomi and you know, the famous five, for want of a better term, because we did sort of, I don't know, keep in touch on and off through the years. I always feel like we'd have that capacity to kind of speak to each other and be like old times. Dave and I think, actually neighbours. I live in South Coogee, so...
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I'm surprised I've never gone with you. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I mean, maybe we're all affected. I mean, I know for me personally, I really... and it's funny, after the interview with Katie, I got in touch with her because I just was so fascinated by that interview and really felt for her, and just shot her an email on Facebook and just got a response from her, which was great. And we had a bit of a conversation, and I just said, you know, I mean, I do have regrets about how I played. I feel like I didn't play to my potential. So, you know, and it's funny, I think it hangs around with you and you think about it a lot. And I know for me, I don't think about it as much anymore, but you still do. And maybe that was part of it too, was just sort of the, you know, the show didn't sort of hit the heights that people wanted. And we all probably had some, you know, to varying degrees, some regrets too. But the friendships are still there, and, you know, Sylvan and I are buds, like we're still in touch. So, yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's just what happens.
Just quickly, you mentioned Sylvan. I feel the need that we've said his name. Here's his book. Everyone go and buy it. You know, it's not available. Trust me, I bought the last copy, I think, in the world. Very, very costly, but
I've got a copy.
I think you all do. We've
got one.
We all need to do like a live read along here, I think, or something along those lines. Naomi, same question to you. I guess we can kind of go around the room here with some of this. I mean, kind of surprising to you that these sort of friendships and contacts, not saying that the friendships aren't there, but you haven't sort of kept in contact?
No, well, yeah, I kind of agree with Deb a little bit. I mean, I sort of have kept in contact, you know, here and there with Deb and with Craig and Sylvan and, you know, Karen. We kind of lost touch a little bit for a while, but we're also talking about a time, you know, we played before social media where and that certainly makes it so much easier to keep in touch and, you know, to be able to kind of connect with people that way. But it wasn't, you know, that wasn't the way it was at the time. So I guess you had to put a little bit more effort in and be a little bit more creative. But, yeah, I suppose I sort of felt like maybe people did keep in touch with their little gang.
It's maybe there's more going on that we're kind of, I guess, appreciating, I think, with that. One thing I'll just quickly say, we mentioned Katie. We should say Katie, great news, has had a baby girl since that interview that we have had with her. So we obviously, on behalf of everyone at Australian Survivor Archives and that, we wish her many congratulations and on her young baby addition to the world. So that is why Katie's not with us this evening. Bit busy.
Great news.
Yeah, fantastic news. It's been really interesting, I think, kind of learning and kind of talking and doing all these kind of things through the interviews. Now, I know sort of, you know, Deb, you just mentioned you sort of listened to the interviews. Craig, I know you listened to the interviews and all those kind of things. Was there anything that stood out in the interviews that you kind of have been dying to address? Craig, I feel like I need to address this to you. Because I know you kind of mentioned your interview with us that, you know, you were surprised you didn't get more shit. Like, you know, you kind of wanted more of this kind of, you know, words said to each other. Was there anything right now that you can remember any of these guys said in their interviews that you kind of want to bring up? Say like, why did you say that? Or, you know, come on, this is bullshit. Come on, tell the truth. Something like that.
No, there was two things. Nothing about like have a crack at me or give it, like there were no hidden secrets other than I'd heard that. And I don't know whether one of the producers said at Lincoln or one of the editors, or I'd heard about the potential cheating, and I was really fascinated. I thought, oh, Jane will tell the truth. And when she said no, there wasn't, I was kind of disappointed because I kind of thought that would have been cool if they had of. I would have been pissed off.
What sort of cheating?
So I got told, and I can't remember, I don't think it was Prue, but I got told that when they did the true and false thing, that when Jane had to get up and Lucinda got up on their own and they had to answer it on their own. And someone told me that there was a signal to Jane by tapping her on the leg if it was true or false. And so I was like, oh, really? So I looked at the footage and you can see Joel's hand come away from her leg. And I thought, oh, and I've always wondered, was it true? And I thought if they did, the smart asses beat us. That was quite clever. But so I don't know if
they
it's
set that up. When they set up this, I mean, when they set up.
Well, I don't know. But Jeff said he didn't know anything about it, but couldn't deny it. And then they asked Jane, and Jane said, no, it didn't happen.
Yeah, and I think I was the same.
I never heard anything about that.
What about you, Sciona? Were you aware of that?
No, I don't have any recollection of it, Lance. I mean, it's certainly possible, and as Craig said, if we were that smart, big tick.
Yeah, I don't see any big issue.
That would have to be a very, very quick. I mean,
I just thought it was quite clever.
They had to choose one to represent the team, and that was Jane. And so that happened very fast. It happened on the spot. I don't know when you would set up the signal business going on with the tap on the leg.
Yeah. Well, you watch the footage, you see Joel's hand come away from her leg, but I don't know who told me, but I just thought it was interesting. And the second thing, David, when you told us in your interview, my blood boiled, dude. I couldn't believe that you went out and got on the piss. and that's why you were sick. And it was
I was dehydrated.
Yeah, because you're out on the piss.
I couldn't believe you snuck out. I couldn't believe you managed to sneak out.
I do tend to actually not hydrate. And
but you were just about to play for $500,000, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
We needed you on that challenge.
How could you resist a night out in Adelaide, really? Yeah.
And David, is it true that you were out drinking chartreuse?
What the hell's that?
It's a French liqueur, and of course David was born in France, and it's the colour of these buffs.
Matt did his research. They're not yellow, they're not green, they're chartreuse.
Yeah, and it's named after the liqueur, the French liqueur chartreuse, which I'm assuming is David's a Frenchman. That he gets on every Friday night. He gets on the chartreuse.
Wow!
It doesn't quite ring, does it? The blue on the blue circle, chartreuse on the chartreuse circle.
I love the fact too that when we had Sylvan on, David, and the fact that we tried to get some clarification about him roofing you, and
yes, don't let him say. Did he confirm it?
He didn't.
No, he didn't.
He didn't. So.
He gave me, he said it was 2 Panadols, right? Now, where are you getting Panadols from? And it was out in the bush. He gave me 2 Panadols. And
people were getting Panadols and things for their coffee sort of addiction and smoking and stuff. They were giving him headaches, so he may have squirreled some away.
He could have been, packing some Panadol for sure.
He could have been. Much more likely than roofies, I would have thought.
Here's a quick question. We just recently rewatched the Surviving Survivor behind the scenes special, and there's a scene there where Stephen's going through all your kits and kind of, going through the contraband and that. Somebody tried to sneak in a toothbrush. Was that any of you guys that tried to sneak in a toothbrush and kind of they had to steal that away from you guys before you went in? No,
I don't. But I did sneak in a pair of nail cutters.
You did, and you got them in.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
pretty easy. With the
Where'd you hide those?
Exactly. Where's the easy part?
In fact, the lads might not remember this, but he had a broken nail, so I got some nail cutters if you want them.
I remember your nail cutters.
As a policeman, Jeff would have known. He would have had the experience with crims and hiding stuff when they go to the watch house. So he would have known the best places to hide the contraband.
I don't think we did a cavity search. So.
No. I actually smuggled in a hair tie in a pocket of my shorts, and I was so terrified to actually use it that I didn't in the end. I think it was after the merge, one of the members of the production team, a runner, she actually said, I I reckon you're probably right now. You could use it. I don't think you're going to get kicked for bringing a hair tie.
Hey, did anyone else have any of the crew whisper or say anything to them?
Yeah, one night we sat around the fire just telling little tales, and the guy that stayed with us, I don't know whether he's a producer or what his role was, lovely man, was telling us about some of these war correspondents in the Middle East, in Afghanistan. A lot of people killed all around him. They let him live to take the story, things like that. So we had one really good night, really interesting night when we went round.
But nothing to do with the game, Jeff?
No, nothing. We even tried. We asked the time because I made a clock out of stones, and I was trying to get the time, what the real time was. But no, they wouldn't give you the time. Wouldn't give you the time of day. They didn't even have water in case you stole that off them.
Why did you?
Lincoln, did you guys sit around? Like, did you get to sit around with the producers and stuff and kind of? Like, were they analysing us through the game, trying to think, well, how can we get something else out of them?
I didn't see that.
I mean, not out there, but we used to sit around all the time and watch the footage and you're trying to plot, you're trying to get storylines happening. I mean, obviously that's what they're looking for. So, you are going to, you're going to ask the questions, and tribal councils sort of way of doing that. That's one thing they do way differently these days is tribal council. Talking about leading questions and revealing stuff. Like we were never revealing to, they're practically telling them who they're voting for these days. It amazes me that because that was one of my strict instructions was that we can't preempt anything, or it's like I was supposed to have not seen anything, not know anything at all about what has happened out there in the last 3 days. And,
see, Deb, that goes to my point about it sounds like it's more an issue now in the game, what you tell producers, as it was when we played it. Like when we played it, I thought they could give away anything, so I said not much at all, but maybe I was paranoid, but I just didn't.
I was the same. I was exactly.
Didn't give much I just feel like if you don't engage on that level, it's also about how what you're picking up from the game, and it presents something for yourself that you might be able to see things differently when you start speaking out loud about it, And maybe it's because I work in the industry, but I just have this thing of like, and I do agree with you, Lincoln. I think there's too much leading now, and it's so much more constructed now in that sense, like idols being found by people that really need them and all that. I mean, there's just stuff that goes on and you just go, yeah, right, And I think I love the purism of the early seasons of the game, which is why, they put people in that have never played the game before because they want new people to come to the show and watch it and go, oh, I'm that because I've never watched Survivor before. So how would I go? You know what I mean? It's all about relatability with who they are.
Yeah. And look, that was the big thing about when we did the timing of when we did ours was it was about survival, and it was about way more than strategy back then, and it was, and Stephen had the idea that this was reality television, and if you look cold, then you were cold. Like that's why he put us there in that horrible location. I mean, he wanted it to be as tough as it possibly could. I think the downside of that was that in the reality, he did not believe that we could go back and do that fire challenge again. We were that's what happened, and that's what we would show on the TV. And to this day, I say that's the wrong decision. I mean, yes, there's reality and there's reality, but we could have done that challenge from the point of throwing the spears the next night and added a day on the end of the shoot, and it would have saved a lot of our viewers, I think.
You think they regret the location? Like Deb said in her interview with her background, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Deb, when you got off the bus, you just went, oh, this looks shit from a visual perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you got away from the coast, it looked terrible. I mean, there was one episode that's almost unwatchable with the flies and the friggin', it just looked ugly. And no matter how much colorization you put into it, it just couldn't be helped. And I think, but again, it was all part of Stephen's philosophy, and he was going to do the toughest Survivor there had ever been. And I do think you guys did it the toughest that anyone's ever had it.
Which
Well,
I
Sean
like that.
Sean was adamant that all the survivors at that point, ours was by far and away the toughest. I mean, there was, I remember that challenge where Katie won it, and it was a reward challenge, and they said, oh, well, it'll be a chicken, or it'll be chicken or minestrone soup. And Katie won the challenge. It was a reward challenge, and when we got back to camp, there was a quarter of a chicken. And everybody went ballistic and said, well, what's going on here? You know, you said there'd be a chicken. Oh, no, we didn't say that. We just said there would be chicken. I mean, I lost about 10.5 kilos in those 39 days. Now, I bulked up before I went out there, but, you know, it was pretty tough in terms of how much nutrition we had, all of that sort of stuff. It was nothing like, I mean, that's what I find so incredibly off-putting and somewhat sort of boring, really, to be honest with you, about, you know, the latest versions of Survivor. You know, when you see that them all troop in and they descend on a cake, you know, stall that's, you know, floor is sort of ceiling full of donuts, and you just go, well, Survivor, I don't think so. Coming back to that earlier.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say, coming back to that earlier question about had anybody talk to us, I actually had one of the camera crew talk to me about Craig and said, look, Craig's really trying, and, you know, what about, you know, you should really think carefully about, maybe you should be thinking about, you know, his offer and aligning with him. That's the only approach I did have, but I actually had a cameraman.
Was that a producer or a cameraman?
No, it was one of the camera crew. I don't know whether I think it was the camera guy, but it could have also, or it may have been the sound guy. It wasn't a producer. But he
straying away from their job description.
I had the same, Lincoln.
Yeah.
I had one of the soundos whisper in my ear on 2 different occasions. Yeah, nothing that revealed anything, but I got, when Lance went off to do yoga and I came along, they told me, oh, you should go with Lance for yoga. And so, and that was, I guess, also, you know, me thinking, okay. But then also when I was doing the fire stick challenge with Rob, and it was down to the 2 of us, and I think the batteries were getting low, one of the soundos came along and did some adjustments and just whispered in my ear, come on, you've got this, you can do it. And just, and he turned my mic off and then turned it back on. And I just, it was a really lovely thing. And I went, yeah, don't worry, I've fucking got this. That was in my head. But he whispered, and it helped. It gave me a boost. I'm like, oh, someone's got my back. Because, you know, you are feeling quite alone out there at that stage of the game.
Wow. No, don't worry. The whole production crew was backing him. I mean, in terms of storyline, they had to beat Rob. If you had won the next challenge, things could have been completely different. But
Lincoln, what was that viewpoint when Craig went and it was all to Para from that production standpoint? Like, was it straight away like, shit, like what's going to happen now? Was it just Rob's going to win? How is this going to turn out?
Well, I didn't know the Rob Katie thing, you know, in detail, but I mean, it was pretty obvious. When Kadena started dropping off, I mean, it was a real disaster for the production. I mean, Stephen was tearing his hair out. It wasn't good that was happening, and I'm surprised actually he didn't bite the bullet and do the swap, or at least merge early or something, you know, just to rescue it. But again, he was maybe not sticking to the rules so much, but he was making it. He wanted it to be real. He didn't want anything to be. There was no artifice. There was not going to be any. Smoke and mirrors in terms of, and there wasn't much. There wasn't much. We didn't, sort of manhandle anything really.
That was. I'm glad that Stephen made it really hard, and that's probably my regret, is that, like, Sciona got to go all the way, and when Sciona and I spoke, I said to her, I don't know what's harder, getting all the way to the end and coming second, and how that must be hard to. For me, that would be hard, and I know it would be hard for Sciona as a very competitive person who was there to challenge herself. And and anyone that got into the show that wanted to win, and not to win sucks and it's hard. But I also feel like I cheated myself out of the experience. Like, I loved that it was really hard, but I wanted to see, could I hack it? Could I keep my mental game as much as my physical game at the very end? And watching Joel and I know Sciona said Rob was starting to really struggle at the end. Just kind of cutting yourself short and not getting to experience that bit and see, well, how was I going to stand up against that? That's the bit I regret, is you can't ever get that back.
Yeah, that's what I think is missing from the game now, is more because there's a real mental, and that's why the challenges got a bit lame towards the end. You can't be challenging people physically at that point when they haven't got any weight on them, they've got they're weak from lack of food, and so it becomes more about the mental challenges and how your mind is standing up to all the endurance of it. So it was a far different game to what they play now.
I'd love to find out from those. I know Deb, Naomi, you're big fans of the show still. I know a couple of you others still watch it, but we touched a lot in all your interviews about the legacy and things like that, where their standpoints now, and we've touched a little bit there. But when you're watching Modern Survivor, taking out things like, oh, I wish they had that, I wish that, is it frustrating sometimes to watch how these players have it now? Going back to our point earlier, we were talking about how, they're not struggling out there, really, are they? They're getting a cake, they're getting things like that. I mean, I'll start with you, Deb, maybe. How frustrating is it from that old school mentality of you being an old school player, watching maybe, I guess, how good in some ways they have it today on Modern Survivor?
Yeah, I think we'd all attest to the fact. I think we played the hardest game, and they'll never play it like that again. And it's a shame, because I do think it was. I do watch it now, and as I said, you can just see the work that goes into it. And in terms of just making it work dramatically, and it's like Lincoln's saying, finding the storylines. They're making the storylines more and more. They kind of manipulate to allow it to happen on a level that never happened for us. I wish it was a kind of a hybrid, I wish that it still had elements of what we went through and a little purism about it, as opposed to where it is now. It'd be nice to have a bit of both. I think sometimes they need to give it a nudge. Like we've all said it, if we had that tribe swap, who knows what could have happened if we won the first challenge. I agree totally with Craig in what we were saying about the teams. I think the professional athletes like Craig and Rob and Katie's influence on Tapara, you can't, what they were able to do, which is something that, we're all athletic and we've all got, sporting backgrounds, but I think most of us did individual pursuits. I did martial arts, and it's not group and team orientated. But yeah, I wish it was a bit of both. I sort of do watch it now. I mean, I love it, and I loved Winners at War, but it was like it was on speed. It was mad, but it's, I do wish it still had and actually, sorry, and I won't bang on much longer, but what I love most about Winners at War was Edge of Extinction, because it went back to that rawness, that challenge when they're all carrying the logs and stuff like that one at a time. That was awesome, and it really took me back to like this true spirit of the original game. And I know it has to change, but I kind of wish it was,
Naomi, it'd be interesting, I think, with you, because as you said, you're in the process of rewatching all the US ones, so you're obviously still in that period now, very similar style to the season you were on, but you're obviously a huge fan of the modern stuff, your Golden God fan family, you've got the shirts and all that kind of stuff, but, I mean, I guess same question, how do you sometimes feel watching the newer ones?
Yeah, look, I certainly don't begrudge the fact that ours was hard. I actually love that. I love that it was hard. I'm a bit like Craig. I wanted to kind of see what I was capable of. But I think if there was anything that I wish had existed, and Deb's already mentioned it really, but if something that could have existed back in our day would have been the tribe swap, or, just something to shake things up, because as soon as things started to unravel at Kadena, it was, kind of predictable how it was going to go. And it was essentially just, how many days can I survive this before it's unfortunately going to be my turn to get voted out? There was really, unfortunately, very little that we could do other than win individual immunity. And obviously only one person can do that after. So,
that's
I like that there is.
So go on.
Sorry, Link.
I know. Just that's the one thing about Survivor where it failed in that older version, because the great thing about Survivor as a game is it forces you in ways. You know, it actually makes itself. You know, the drama is created by the game itself, and usually it fits, it works. But that's the one thing that can go wrong if one team, and that's obviously why they decided to start doing tribe swaps, because that solved that problem. And that's
well, and that's it. And that's how it was played in old school.
As soon as the Survivor gets predictable, it's not for Survivor. You know, and that's the great thing about it. These little twists and turns that happen with alliances and people turning on each other, and that's the construct that they've now inserted in there is what we needed in ours.
I've mentioned, and Deb, you nailed it on the head. You said, like, you know, the new seasons of US Survivor, it's like they're all on speed. That was a great summing up, because they're all just, it's chaos. Now, I've mentioned numerous times throughout the podcast that David Haas was before his time. And I say that because I think David would actually enjoy chaos. I think you're just that personality. You just don't know what's happening next. David, do you think, you know, that the newer version of Survivor would be a lot more suitable for you than the old school version?
We were flicking through the channels the other night, and my son saw what is it, Naked and Afraid?
Yeah.
and he stopped,
They'd sit you down to the ground.
Yeah. Naked, so he stopped on that, but I was blown away. So getting your gear off, man, they were there for 30 days, I think, in six.
Yeah, they're in the Congo or something like that. They are in real jungle.
Yeah. So that could be interesting.
and David, I think
was
also
naked enough. Shona was on Naked Afraid, I think, weren't you, Shona? Like, you know, you were always having to swim with your clothes off.
Actually, I'm glad you brought...
Sure beat lying on the beach in a bikini, sort of sunbaking and talking about, you know, the latest fashion. And that wasn't my thing at all.
I just rewatched the Surviving Survivor episode recently, and there's actually something I picked up on, Shona, that I'd forgotten that happened. In that episode, it must have been right at the end, like the final four, because it was Rob, Sophie, yourself, and Joel. You were on like the rock cliff or whatever, and you were actually sunbaking. You had no top on, but you were lying, you know, with your back up in the air, so lying on your stomach, and you actually say to the cameraman, you turn around and say, can you nick off? And the cameraman actually says, okay. And you see the cameraman, you had that much power in the game. You could tell the cameraman to nick off. If I would have told the cameraman to nick off, they would have grabbed me by the scruff of my neck and told me to get out of the show. So, you know, I thought that was quite funny, actually.
Oh, it sounds like Stephen Peters to nick off many times.
Well, and while I'm on that, another thing I saw, when that whole mutiny thing happened and the producers were trying to get you to go to Tribal, and you were refusing. You were like, no, I'm not doing it. And they'd say, come on, grab your bags, we're going. And you had a great line. You said, no, I'm not going to Tribal Council. Fuck them. You were like, no, you're not going. Great line.
I love it.
How would you have reacted to a tribe swap, Shona?
Yeah.
How would you have reacted to a tribe swap?
I don't know, I guess, but I mean, I don't think that would have fazed me at all. It was that somehow this new plan came up at the 11th hour and 59th minute. At that stage, you know, Katie was pretty bent out of shape. You know, she'd been hurt, and she could see that her, you know, days were numbered. And as we all know, you know, she was an alpha competitor. You know, it was. I would have been gutted too. I mean, Katie, but you're tired. You know, you're stressed. You've got to that stage, and then somebody comes down and says, "Oh, you know what? We're thinking of doing a 3 to Tribal Council or whatever it was." Well, you know, Rob was pretty much at the end of things as well. So it was just, and as I think I said in my interview, you know, it wasn't. I didn't think it was reflecting on it, I didn't think it was a smart thing to do, because what on earth was the next step. Stephen ringing Kerry Packer and saying, "Oh, look, you know what? We've got to the end. There are 3 left. We've decided to let the other 2 go, and we're going to award the sole survivor to number 3." I mean, it was just, I didn't see how they were going to pull that off. There was no win-win in it for us. There was no negotiation. It was a sort of, and so any which way you look at it, we were in a position of power. Not that you can think those through necessarily as rationally as that at the time, because everybody was tired and everybody knew we had, when I say everybody, Rob and I knew that we only had, a matter of a day and a half or whatever it was to go. So it was just a distraction that none of us needed, including, the production people, I thought, but that was my take on it.
But that's when
How do
I
they
realised.
stop that?
Well,
So how do they stop that now? Like, if the shoe was on the other foot and I was into Para and we merged 7-3 and they split us into 5, I would have been pissed off. I would have said, our tribe's played well. We've decimated the other tribe. That's the way it is. I know in the modern Survivor, they split it up. And for my sake, I wish they had have done that. But how do they take away, like Sciona and that were actually quite smart to go, hang on, we've actually got the power here and we're going to screw your show up. How do they stop that now?
I think it's more controlled now on the fact that people, A, know what they're getting into, B, they know that they can literally shove a twist in them at last minute. Matt, you might be able to attest
But
this
it's all in
too.
the contract, isn't it, Matt?
It's different now,
Well,
isn't
I'll
it?
tell you this right now, Craig. I'm a classic example. I think out of anyone I can speak about this is I've been a fan of Survivor for 20 years. I've watched everything. And I get to my season on day 2. We just finished an immunity challenge. I knew I was in trouble. So I'm thinking, okay, I need to start chatting to more people. And I get told straight away, oh, and by the way, tribal council's tonight. You've got 2 hours. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it's day 2. Never been done before. So they can change it up. What was I going to say? I wasn't going to say, well, I'm not going to tribal council. It has to be on day 3, like it has been for 20 years. I was the first one ever to have a tribal council on day 2. To me, that was one of the biggest twists in history because I did not see it coming. But I couldn't say anything. I had to say, okay, I've got 2 hours and I've got to go to tribal council.
Two years later, he's still having a sook.
No, but what happens, then Matt, what happens if you had off? What if he said, screw you, I'm not going?
I would have been gone. I would have been out of the game. They just would have said, all right, well, they obviously would have no doubt tried to talk you into going. But if I just refused to go, all right, well, they just would have put something up there where we're not having a tribal council, no doubt. Matt's been disqualified or whatever and out. Like, it happens all the time. There's so many twists and turns in the game, like too many, to be honest. There's too many these days. But people wouldn't dare question it because they, like Ben said, they know what they're getting into. There's no rules now. Really, there's the basic rules, and after that, it's whatever happens.
And it's
but I don't know what the other contestants think. Like Lincoln, I think you were going to say about the contract, but when I went on to Survivor, I felt like I'd signed my life away and they could do anything. I wasn't expecting there were any rules. I actually don't know when you guys mentioned about when the votes are equal, it goes to pass. I don't actually remember any of that. I didn't know what the actual rules were other than outwit, outlast, outplay.
It's interesting too, I think, with like things like, with that and like adding to they can basically do what they want in many ways now. I mean, we talked a lot about sort of tribe swaps and kind of things like that, but things like what they do today with manipulation of challenges, they want to keep you in, Craig. Nowadays, they'll see that your strength is an endurance challenge or a swimming challenge, so they'll make every challenge that way. They're not going to give you a gross food eating challenge in modern day Survivor because they know that's your weakness. There's no way they would do that now. They're doing everything like Lincoln was saying. They want you around, so they're going to make you stay around with every possible way they can do it.
I think it's a credit to you, Sciona, though, that you spoke up. Like, you spoke up and said, well, no, this ain't happening. If you do it, see you later, I'm out of here. And you called their bluff, I guess. And
well, at that stage of the game, the pointy end of the game, you've got 3 people left. I mean, and that by that stage, the power base has slightly shifted. And,
hinging on them now.
That's right. Yeah, what they were going to hand that to Sophie because she was the last one out.
And there's only so much editing at that point. Like if in the case with Matt, if Matt's literally like, "Fuck off, I'm not doing this," they can find a way to edit Matt's footage out of the first episode.
Absolutely.
Whereas you can't do that on episode 13.
Smart that Sciona had the. I also think the smarts and the life experience, because if I was in that situation, I don't know I would have done the same thing. I'd like to think I would, but we'll never know. So I just think it was clever of them to push back.
Oh, I know. They were absolutely shitting themselves.
Well, you'd set it all up. You'd set everything up to get yourselves to that point, and then all of a sudden the goalposts have moved. I totally...
Oh, yeah, no, I can understand it. I absolutely understand it. But the fact that they realised that, hang on, what happens if the alternative was just ridiculous. So the power was completely in your guys' hands at that point.
Be glad you weren't on the next season, the Channel 7 one, where they brought everyone back as a chance to come in, and the final two were two people who'd been bloody voted out before. So, I mean, I would have loved to see how Sciona you would have reacted to that if all of a sudden they're going, oh, hey, he's Craig, he's Sylvan, they're coming back into the game right now, and they're players at the final three.
Woohoo!
Like I said, it was.
Go on, sorry.
It was just it was a silly thing. I think that they sort of tried to pull at that 11th hour and 59th minute because, Rob and I and Katie. I mean, we'd been through a lot and we'd worked pretty hard to get to where we were, it was. I knew. As Craig says, I guess from my life experience, from being a pilot in command, and even being in my business dealings, that in any sort of negotiation, you've got to look at what the pros and cons are, and you assess the risk, and then at some point you've got to take a stand, and that was the stand I took at the time. I'd just like to comment earlier. We talked earlier about. Modern Survivor. I said this in my interview. I think it's quite prescriptive, and in lots of ways, it's, to be honest, I haven't seen a lot of it. I must admit, I haven't seen all of them. I did see some of it, bits here and there. My mother, but it's so prescriptive. And I'm so sick of, again, no disrespect to Vanuatu and Fiji and what have you, but it's the same old, same old. I'd like to see Survivor come back to Australia, particularly at this time in history. I've just come back from the bush. From
of it.
Sorry?
Sorry to interrupt you. They're talking about it because they're trying to work out what they're doing with the next season. So there's a bit of a whisper going around that they are actually trying to find a location in Australia for it.
This is American.
Well,
no, the Australian. Well, the American one, they're talking about maybe doing it within the States, kind of for that one. But for Australian Survivor, the whisper is right now for the next season that they may be looking at filming it in Australia for the first time since Whalers. Maybe they'll go back to Whalers Way. Who knows?
Sorry.
I would have thought it would have been, reasonably easy to get sponsors because, our economies, like it is all over the world with coronavirus. Anything you can do to provide some stimulus and boost the economy. Our country is just, we all know this, it's just amazing. I mean, Karajini, my goodness, the gorges are up there. I proposed maybe getting, a change of gender for the host. Instead of it being male, let's make it a female. Let's get some of our Indigenous elders involved in some of these things. I'd like to see, I've got lots of ideas, and it's all based around what can we do in Australia and how interesting and challenging can we make it, sort of revitalise the whole thing a bit. But that's my opinion.
I think it would work very well. Yeah. It would be interesting, and particularly now, it'd definitely be very relevant. One thing I like, again, we talked a lot about this in all your individual episodes, but I love this topic. This is why I always bring it up. But it's kind of discussing modern versus old and kind of all things, that sort of stuff. the thought process that goes into something like All Stars, none of you being invited, things like that, it has actually emerged. And we some of the interviews that we've done, this has been brought up since. People like Deb, Lincoln, we interviewed you well before this was revealed. David Jeanette, the Golden God, started a podcast, and his very first guest that he had on his show was Guy Leach, who, of course, won Season 2, the celebrity version, whatever you want to call it, on Channel 7. And Guy Leach revealed that he was approached by Channel 10 to appear on their version, whether that was for All Stars or a Champions vs Contenders, it wasn't clear. I think he was alluding to All Stars. But the question with this is, if they're approaching someone who won a former season, does that piss you off even more now that they didn't come back to your season? Because, Lincoln, I'd like to start with you, because I know you're sort of on the fence here and saying that you can see more so why they don't call your season 1, and you can understand that. But I mean,
just having worked at networks, I mean, it's just the network thing. They are so partisan, and the other station doesn't exist, basically, and so that's the way their attitude is. And they would see it somewhere. Someone would see it as, by putting that person on Channel 10, you're promoting Channel 9, because they are known as being on Channel 9 originally. I don't know how ingrained that feeling is these days, because I think the networks are doing a lot of weird things to try and survive. But just in days gone by, it would be unheard of. It would be unprecedented to have that kind of although, I mean, look, okay, they have a Big Brother kind of some sort of interchange there, haven't they?
Well, I think the difference with Big Brother, I mean, that's always the comparison. It's similar to Survivor. It's been on all 3 networks. But I think that the key difference there is Big Brother was a lot more successful. And it obviously was around for a lot longer period, and it had a bigger fan base of people. If you're going to talk about a Reggie or a Trevor, people automatically associate that with Big Brother. Benjamin, sort of from the Channel 9 version, Tim, and now the Channel 7. Like, it's hard to kind of differentiate that. But I guess kind of just back to my point, like, does that surprise you then, Lincoln, to hear that someone like Guy Leach is saying, I was invited to Channel 10? So clearly Channel 10 must have had a thought at some point of, we need to get this guy on, and particularly if it's for All Stars, and that means they would be acknowledging that there was an older version on another channel.
Yeah, no, that does surprise me. I'm very surprised by that, because how they, were they? I guess the only reason he's going to be invited on is because he's played Survivor before. You can't just have an Iron Man on there because he's an Iron Man in a Champions.
Because you couldn't ignore that. You couldn't. And Guy Leach isn't going to come on there and, like, if they're going to say to him, Guy, we want you on as an Iron Man on Champions vs Contenders, but do not mention you were on Survivor. I mean, Guy Leach, famously in that final episode, he's going off at production saying, this is bullshit. I didn't lose this challenge. I can't see Guy Leach sitting back and going, no, I'm not going to say that.
Cut him out, Ben. If he starts talking about it, they just cut it out.
Good point.
Is it just
in pulling power? Did he say why he didn't do it? Why he didn't end up agreeing to go on?
I think it just didn't fit in, or he wasn't ready to go back. Matt, was that?
Yeah, I think he said that I think what he said was whenever he does something, he's got to have that 100% passion, and he just didn't feel like he was physically 100% and just wasn't. Yeah, he said he did think about it, but he just felt that he wasn't going to give it 100%, so he decided not to do it.
Which I know all of you would play again in a heartbeat. We know that the passion is there to play again. It's and like, this is again my favorite topic. Hearing you guys talk about, sort of like this, you guys almost being ignored now throughout this, and even the season numbers and things like that. It's it's always confusing. Craig, if you get that phone call one day and then finally they acknowledge this season, I mean, that must be the ultimate goal for all of you guys, that one day there is that acknowledgement and you've got that opportunity to open up again, because we've discussed with all of you, you apply again, and if you're successful, are they just, again, going to ignore that? Like, it's a cool story. Lincoln, we talked with you, like, it would be fantastic for you to apply and get on. What a story. The host of the OG Australian Survivor, I mean... Craig, that phone, if you just sit it in front of you and hope that Channel 10 changed their mind like they clearly were doing with Guy Leach.
I can't hope. I was dead set serious. About a year later, I almost quit my job, and I was going to fly over to America, post myself in a box and do the same thing. And I think Rob's brother said it, and I think Sciona, like, in my head, I never saw anything else other than winning. But then beyond that, I was going to go to America for an All-Stars. That's where in my head, that's where I was fantasizing the journey was going to go. And then after Survivor, all those things happen and you go off and you do this and that and you join the roller coaster ride and see what happens. And then you go back to life. But it kept niggling away at me and I was desperate. Like I went and researched it all. Who was the person to go and, another Stephen Peters and do all that stuff. So that passion, like what Deb was saying before, it hasn't gone, and I don't think it's gone for any of us. But I can't sit there waiting for a phone call. But listening to Lincoln, it's like it's probably a waste of my time to apply for Channel 10 because, they're going to say, no, piss off. But I would play again in a heartbeat anywhere in the world just to go through it all again, and I'd want it to be hard.
One thing that I think we also discuss in the episodes, just in regards to, I guess, the longevity and the history and kind of the notoriety of your season, is that, do you guys think one reason as well that maybe it got forgotten, not just because of people's perception of the quality, that there wasn't really, say, an ambassador for your season? Obviously, unfortunately, we had a lot of tragedy before your season over a short period of time. But someone like Rob, we talked about it with Pete, that Rob would not have stood down without a fight if there was an all-star season and Rob was still with us. Rob's not going to sit back and go, oh, hang on a minute, why aren't we being here? Like, Rob would have fought for something like that. Rob would have been an outspoken person, no doubt, for the season. Do you think that if someone like that, or there was, I guess, more activity from some of you guys constantly talking about your season out there, that maybe it would be different, that this would be perceived differently? I'll just open that up to the floor if anyone wants to chime up with that one.
But what channel? Who would pick it up? Someone needs to pick it up.
Well, it's not necessarily about picking it up. It's more so more of a recognition of your season, I guess. I mean, again, it's a I guess a very skew-if question in the fact, kind of going to Lincoln's point, networks don't work that way. But
what was the time period between ours and the next one?
Your season and if you include the Channel 7 version, there was 4-year gap between 2002 2006, and then there was a 10-year gap until Channel 10 picked up in 2016.
That's a long time, isn't it?
Yeah, which it would just be interesting because there are other international versions where there are still players who are kind of known for this and known for that and known for being on Survivor, and it's just there was that weird 10-year period between the Channel 7 version and because when Channel 10 announced that they were doing it, everyone was shocked. It was, where did this come from? This, it was just kind of, it was a random thing. So I just wonder if there was somebody more actively out there, a prominent player from your season who was constantly saying that.
Was a 7-1 a celebrity one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And celebrity in air quotes.
Yeah. I don't take those seriously. Because it's a celebrity thing.
It's hosted by Dicko, so it's pretty hard to take seriously.
Yeah, I'm the same as you, David. I think they're just whatever. They don't play from what I understand, they didn't play the whole amount of days.
I
don't think you can.
Therefore, you have that as a buffer. You have that as a buffer between ours. So then that reduces the legitimacy of ours, even because then you've got this dodgy one in the middle, and then you got 10 years, another 10-year gap, and so they start.
The thing, Naomi, I'll come to you in just a sec. I'll just kind of add with that the thing that I think kind of blurs that line, because David, that's definitely an opinion of a lot of people. A lot of people, fans, when they at least acknowledge that your season exists and go, it sucks, I don't, that's just a Channel 9 version. A lot of people will be on that page of, I don't count the Channel 7 one as a real one because it was celebrities. I think the kind of thing that kind of blurs that line now, though, is that half of the Channel 10 seasons have featured half celebrities. And basically every... you look at the winners of all the Channel 10 ones. I mean, we had Shane Gould, we had Pia, we had David Jeanette. These are 3 champions. These are 3 celebrities. So more than half of the winners of the Channel 10 are the celebrities who have been put on that. Add Guy Leach into the mix. Even add Rob. I mean, Rob wasn't a bona fide AFL superstar by any means, but I mean, he kind of came into that with a bit of a reputation. So,
I think what you guys said at the time when we were talking about this was that where the world has also changed is social media. And all those people, celebrities and half celebrities and even de-grade celebrities, have a following on Instagram or whatever, and that will bring an audience to that show. And And that's why the Channel 10 version very quickly went to celebrity or and came back with champions versus what's the name. So the world has changed in that way. I think I always like to watch a Survivor that has people who've never played the game before and ordinary people. And that's my idea of what Survivor's about. When you start getting professional athletes in there and even Shane Gould, to me, I can understand why, because they need an audience that's built in. And I think that there was a leap in that when they did go to celebrity from the last one, and a fairly substantial leap in ratings. But the one thing I would point out in our season was Channel 9 was required contractually to make a version of Survivor because they showed the American version. I don't know what the contract stipulated about showing the American one, showing the Australian one at the expense of the American one. But in Channel 9's eyes, it was an expensive venture. They didn't know if it would work. They weren't sure if it would work. If it didn't work really, really well, they weren't ever going to make another one because they only ever had to make one. So in their eyes, in Channel 9's eyes, it was a one-off. And I can tell you, from very personal experience that when it didn't hit the numbers that they thought it was going to hit, no one's sitting with you at the canteen. There was a turn-off to anything Survivor related, and even producers who worked on the show were kind of tainted by this Survivor failure. Even though we were still hitting 1 million viewers every week, but that was a failure in those days. Well, no, it wasn't a failure. It was the fact that it didn't wait 2 million. That's what they expected because that's what Survivor America had been doing.
So before you were getting everyone from Getaway basically sucking up to everyone and they're wanting to get on the show, and afterwards they were like, "Fuck, I'm glad I stayed on Getaway." Ben Dark was all of a sudden going, "Shit, I dodged a bullet."
Just touching on what David was saying, that how it's such a big gap from 2001 till 2016 too. That's another thing you've got to remember. There's a whole new generation of people watching this show that weren't around when you guys played. So that's another reason, I guess, that you've got to realise that the episodes aren't really, like, although they're on YouTube now, there's still issues about getting them to watch them. But, a lot of young people like watching this show. So some of them weren't even born when your season was playing. And because of that large gap, that was probably another reason too that maybe your season was, I guess, a little bit forgotten.
Yeah,
but I think you have your moment in the spotlight. Does anyone give a shit about the Big Brother winners from 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
We give a shit about Reggie Craig. Careful, she's a Tasmanian icon.
Whatever,
you watch
Reggie,
your mouth, sir.
Doesn't she cook fish and chips or something?
Her dream was to be a flight attendant, and she failed. She got sacked.
Naomi, what about you? I mean, you're one of the biggest Survivor fans to ever play this game. I think you and I are very similar like that. We were lucky enough to get to play this game, and we're massive fans, absolutely like super fans.
She lasted longer than you, Matt. Not that similar.
How is it? What's it like for you, the fact that you made merge, you were the first female, what was it, you're the first female to be voted out of Aurora, but the fact that you're still a fan of this game now, and you kind of don't probably get, like, it's hard. Like, yes, you played the game and you can tell people, yep, I played the game. But then at the same time, they're like, well, how come you're not on All-Stars? Or how come, and it sounds like you're not even eligible to be on All-Stars. Is that kind of hard for a super fan that has played this game?
Oh, that's actually, this whole conversation is really interesting. And I've loved you asking that question, particularly Ben, each week to all of the people you've interviewed. And I actually really resonated with Sophie when she said, actually didn't really bother me, that we've kind of been forgotten, except that, and I'll get to this in a second, but I think just looking at all the faces here on the Zoom tonight, I don't think any of us signed up for Australian Survivor to be famous or to be remembered. This is why I signed up, because I wanted to play that bloody game. I love it. I want to be in. And it doesn't worry me now if people don't remember it, except that the only reason would be that it would have been cool to be considered for the All-Stars or to be a returning player at some point. I don't know for everyone else, but I don't think anybody here signed up to play Australian Survivor 19 years ago to be famous.
Just quickly, that's Naomi's first bloody for the episode, everyone. Good job.
Sorry about that.
I've missed the boat.
Yeah. Bloody boat.
The bloody boat.
I
yes.
want to play again, then I'm the oldest person to ever play it.
Well, exactly. I mean, the great thing from your season, Queen Jane, still holds that record of being the youngest player ever in Australian Survivor history. So Jeff, you can keep that rolling still.
I can be the other side and be the oldest.
Kind of come back and be the oldest one. It's something that I will always hark on about. I will always defend.
Postcard.
Here's a postcard. Let's have a look at this. What's this one?
Whalers Way, Port Lincoln.
Oh, fantastic.
Go there for your holidays.
Where that's been written on, that's the lines. That's the first challenge.
Oh, great.
Coming out into the water.
We're going to need that for the reunion next year. I kind of want to go to these locations and like visualize.
Picking up, the log and then coming back.
Yeah. Wow. That's
sorry, I just thought I'd share it. Just sitting in the book.
I want to find the patch of grass where Katie threatened to kill people. That's my goal.
Yeah.
Hey, Lance, you're one of the interviews I really enjoyed. I enjoyed everyone's interview. But the thing that fascinated me about your interview, Lance, is you were kind of out there for a different reason. And Naomi said, like, no one was out there to be famous. And I know that was the case for you. But you were out there for almost like a bit of a spiritual awakening, I guess you could say, or just there's just something you wanted to do when you were out there. You mentioned that you were at that point in your life where you just wanted to do something different, and to the point that when you got voted out, you actually still wanted to stay out there in a tent away from the rest of the game, I guess. I found that fascinating, and I love that about you, Lance, is that you weren't even there. You weren't there. You didn't care if you were getting paid $1 to be there. You just wanted to be there.
Yeah, and I think picking up on Naomi, I think we were all there for the experience. I mean, okay, Craig was wanting to win. I mean, it wasn't as if I didn't want to win. And I think I said also in the interview, it changed for me. Like during that process, and I think it was because it was so hard, and we had the absolute pleasure to do it for 30 days. And I did say it in the interview, but on day 29, and to Steve's credit, he actually came and spoke to me. Maybe I was thinking I was going to get voted out. I don't know. But I actually asked, look, if I do, that's when I asked him before I got voted off. I said, if I do get voted off, can you leave me in some little spot so I can do the 40 days in the desert? And it was a unique thing. And I think that's what we all have. We all experienced life really hard. And sure, there's the dynamics of the second side of this thing, which I wasn't really targeted into. But I will say I was tricked a little bit, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. It was actually good strategy, and I put that to Sciona and Rob. That we had a sort of an outer alliance that we weren't going to be like America. And remember, it's so early. This would have frustrated Craig, of course, but we weren't going to do it like the Americans. We weren't going to have alliances. Of course, there was an alliance. So in a way, that is an alliance. And so I got totally hooked into that, and it suited the person I was, and that was good reading of a character to say, okay, we can catch him on that one.
So Lance, you just admitted there are alliances. Have you just worked it out? Nearly 20 years later. Yes, you've done it. There it is. Lance has worked it out.
I reckon we all, I do believe we all had a bit of a spiritual, and I thought it was a very spiritual place. We sat, and that place where we did yoga, that was sitting on one of the biggest middens I've ever seen. And I don't know, and Rob, like he was a funny guy too. He nicknamed me, Lance of Arabia type thing. And I just zoned out. It was a beautiful, but I didn't expect to go there and that happened, but that did happen.
That's what was interesting.
It's frustrating to Craig, obviously.
No, it's not, Lance. I remember when you said that in your interview, and that was to my point earlier, that they compare to Para and Kadena, and I don't see any difference. You guys were still trying to fly under the radar and no alliances. So to sort of bag Kadena for doing that, and that's you guys were doing the same thing. And there was you and a few others that said the same thing, that people were trying not to draw any attention to themselves. They wanted to fly under the radar. You were of the impression there were no alliances. Same thing was happening on Kadena. So, I found all that really interesting.
But there was a very strong alliance, though, wasn't there? I mean, when you think about Robert and Sciona were solid, and I suppose you were saying you and Naomi were solid too. But I think Rob on top of that, and I know I hear what Sciona was saying in her interview too, but I think they also had captured Sophie and Katie in that web. And so I think, it was a very strong strategy.
I mean, Katie had a list. She had this one's going on, bang, 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 bang. She knew what was going on to the end. I mean, there was a lot.
Well, she wasn't quite right to the end, though.
No, right.
You had her. You had your list too,
sideswipe, yeah.
But that's what was good. And Sciona had a map or something as well.
Yeah.
They were really strategizing through how they were going to get to the end and where, if they needed to deviate, how they were going to do that. And it was cool to hear all that.
I like how you all had pens and paper ready to go. Like, it's kind of, that's an interesting thing. A couple of sort of quick fire questions to kind of, leading us into the closing stages. Two things I wanted to really point out around Lincoln here. First of all, Deb, it was revealed, I believe, in Naomi's interview that you had a bit of a nickname for Mr. Lincoln, the Thinking Man's Crumpet. Now, you want to give us a bit of background of that?
Thinking Woman's.
Oh, Thinking Woman's. Sorry.
I'm not sure.
Sure. How did that come about? Tell us about the Thinking Woman's Crumpet.
Look, I have a vague recollection it might have had something to do with the X-Files, because I think David Duchovny at the time was known as the Thinking Woman's Crumpet. And because, Lincoln he's a guy, he sort of wasn't your, he wasn't your Jamie Jury. He was this guy that sort of came from left field and, and he was quiet and he was
an intellectual kind of.
And cerebral.
Unlike Jamie Jury.
So I think it sort of spawned from that, actually.
And did you know this was going about, Lincoln? Did you hear this nickname for you?
I think I might have heard something like that at some point.
Do you go back to your wife and go, hey,
this is why we don't talk to producers, because they go and spread things.
The other thing too, Lincoln, which we discovered a lot during the rewatches, is we discovered a little thing that we like to call Dick Lincoln, where you kind of had these little backhanded
being
comments.
a dick again.
Yeah, I mean, A, was that deliberate, and B, got any dick comments you want to kind of bring up 20 years later to any of the people on the line today?
No, I was told very specifically that I was not their friend. I was not to smile. I wasn't to make any kind of contact with them whatsoever, aside from talking to them and telling them about the challenges. Stephen was adamant that I wasn't to be at all personable. So, anytime you throw any comment, I mean, I thought I was most friendly when I had the boat. I think I was friendly then. But other than that, I was strict instructions not to engage in any way whatsoever, and especially not to, be nice to them. So anytime that there was time for a dick comment, I'm right there.
You were on the ball. That was great. That was fantastic. I'd love to hear from...
What do you mean by it? What is an actual example of a Lincoln dick comment?
There was just your little snide comments, particularly I think it was around Kadena, when they kept losing all the time, like, oh, yep, if you're back here again and you lose one more, there'll only be 3 of you. Like, it's kind of just, it's like, you're such a nice guy.
What can you say when they keep losing?
There's just something about the nicety, though. Like, it's kind of like, it's not a Probst or a dicko in his anger. Even JLP kind of has a way of doing it. Like, you've got this such calm, like, oh, I'm Lincoln, I'm so nice. But like, it's just the way you pass it off. It's kind of, you've really got to pick it up, and it's like, I like it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Dick Lincoln is one of my favourite things I discovered this season where you're watching it.
Isn't that passive aggressive?
Thank you. There you go. I'm Jamie Jury here. Clearly the smarts aren't here. I don't know these big words.
I don't think that's passive aggressive. I would point out the fact that I only see one tribe here at Tribal Council, and he's gone.
He doesn't know when to stop, does he?
No, see, there it is. That's exactly a classic example of it. Thank you, Lincoln.
But to his credit, he did. I don't ever recall Lincoln having to do things twice. Like,
not often.
Unlike Dicko, come on now, that guy, 20-take Dicko, isn't that his nickname?
I reckon jail.
that opening sequence with the bus arrives, I reckon it goes for about 17 minutes, or maybe 15 minutes. No auto cue, completely memorised, did it from not a stumble.
And let's be honest, 20 years later, round of applause for Lincoln for that.
Yeah.
I think that alone.
Come on. I'd love to actually ask, I want to hear any fun Lincoln stories at the moment. A random question I would like to kind of bring up in all of these reunions we do for future seasons. And this is maybe the most open one I'm going to, because I think when we get to like season 3, Channel 10, half the people are going to go, "Who's Lincoln House?" Sorry, Lincoln.
Yeah,
I know
exactly.
you're a celebrity. But let's put Lincoln, Dicko, and JLP on Survivor. Who's going the furthest? Who's winning out of those 3? Let's open it up to the floor. Chime in with your answers. As contestants, exactly.
Back in the day, I would have done well. I mean, that was the whole idea. I was a Survivor fan. I wanted to be on it. I didn't want to host it. I wanted to be
still
on
could be.
And
You still. We told you. Come on,
I
Lincoln.
don't know these days. No, I reckon I would have gone because I reckon I can really fake sincerity really well. I could have defended everybody. I have no problem throwing on the bus at all.
Dicko's going first out of you 3, so I think it just comes down to you and JLP. Deb, I mean, as a fan, can you kind of picture how they would go?
I think Lincoln would do it very well. I think JLP is an actor.
Yes.
Hold on, when we started this little conference, wasn't Lincoln sucking on a bunger?
Yeah, so I didn't smoke back then either. I was much fitter. I don't get it. I used to have the gym.
Who had the better rig back then, Lincoln or JLP? Because I won't say Dicko. We know Dicko's rig isn't that great or wasn't at the time, but
that's a dad bod rig.
I never got to get the shirt off.
Yeah, well, you had the rope on the shoulder at least in your photo shoot. I don't ever see JLP with a rope on his shoulder. I mean, there's at least that.
I carry it everywhere.
Yeah, well, I think you probably still do. I mean, you could still do the towel challenge. I mean, we saw JLP do it in front of his car on Instagram. I mean, there's still time, Lincoln. Get the rig out. Come on.
Can I just say, you know who I want to do? Do you know who I want to do the towel challenge? And I reckon he would do it. David Haas.
I knew you were going there. I just wanted you to say it. The man crush is just going to new levels.
What's the towel challenge?
So David Jeanette, the most recent winner, kind of started a thing a few years ago where basically, because he's a model, and he basically just posed nude with a towel covering his bits, and then that kind of turned into a bit of a charitable thing, because Lee Castledine, a player on season 3 and on All Stars, his mother passed away and he got removed from the game, so kind of to raise charity.
The Stroke Foundation.
Thank you. To raise money for the Stroke Foundation, a bunch of the modern Australian
Didn't you do the towel challenge?
Did I do it? Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. Sorry for that image.
With the Tapara buff.
Yeah, this buff on my head, everyone that I'm touching has touched other parts of me.
It's not the buff you sent me, is it?
About that. So yeah, basically, Matt is basically wanting to see you nude with a towel covering your doodle.
I thought it was flicking each other's butts with the towel.
Matt would probably enjoy that too.
Can we throw that in there?
Again, invite Matt over. He would probably gladly partake in that activity with you. But yeah, I would love to see all 3 battle it out. Naomi, as a fan, would you love to see Lincoln, JLP, Dicko battling it out to the death? Put them in your shoes.
Yeah, I would love that. That'd be fantastic. But I think you're right. Dicko would be first beat for sure.
Yeah, poor Dicko. Play hard, play fair, play to win. No, mate, you're gone. Craig,
who would host in this situation, though?
Well, which one? Deb, you want to host? First female host?
No, let Jeff Brown do it, because he'll just heckle him the whole time.
That would work. Craig, you could host. You've got the look, you've got the rig, you've got everything going for you. You could look with rope on your shoulder.
Nah, that's past me. I'll play again, but nah.
I think that's the audition process, isn't it, Lincoln? They basically stood you in front of a camera and go, "Here's some rope, put it on your shoulder," and you're hired. Jamie Jury, go away. He's Lincoln.
No, actually, my audition tape was the original Survivor spiel, the one they used to do, 16.
Oh yeah, 16 Americans. Yeah. Do you still have it? Do you still have that audition tape?
I haven't got a copy of it. No.
See, look,
But that's when I bought my Big W shirt.
Yeah, which you still own, I believe, from memory, do you not?
I still have it, yes. It's in the cupboard. All my Survivor gear is still in the cupboard.
Yeah, the famous
but yeah, that was their costuming.
I'd actually like to see Sciona host Survivor. Sciona, I think, I'd love to see you play again, but Sciona, again, you talk about, Jeff not holding back, man. I mean, imagine Sciona out there, you players don't do as I tell, fuck off. I could just imagine you doing that, Sciona.
I wasn't that bad.
Sciona, I reckon you would end up just walking into camp and start doing the rice for them and thinking, bugger it, you're burning the rice, you're not doing it properly, just leave it here, I'll do it.
What's for dinner tonight? What's for fucking dinner?
I think you would,
What were
Sciona.
those little rubber things you used to eat?
Well, 30 fucking days.
Mollusks.
Those mollusks.
Yeah.
Yeah, artificial prawn.
The tire, the
Beautiful,
Dunlop, was it
beautiful.
Rob said
Yeah.
Dunlop tires or whatever it
Rubbery.
was, basically like chewing that. Any fun Lincoln memories? Anyone? Got any fun, quick little Lincoln stories that you remember? I know he wasn't allowed to be your friend, but was there anything you remember?
That's the thing. We didn't interact much at all. We didn't.
Oh, there's stories. Lincoln's trying to cover it up. Come on, there's a story floating around here about Lincoln, surely.
No one came to karaoke. They didn't see it.
Oh, he's still
Well,
bitter.
About it though.
I heard about Lincoln karaoke, and was it the G teasers or something? Lincoln, didn't they have like dancing girls and guys at the bar, and they're called the
Oh.
G?
Smiling.
Yes, that's vague memory of that.
Yeah, I remember.
But
I heard
before
you were
when
popular with the
when
G
you guys-
teasers.
you guys were talking, Lincoln, I think it was Lincoln was talking about the food and how, Craig was talking about how they provide food to the contestants. Well, no contestant on Survivor has been fed as well as we were because we found a cache of abalone. So every night we'd have rice with half a dozen abalone per serve.
Wow.
Were they legal size?
We were eating abalone.
I think there was that
Right.
warning in the last episode,
Sometimes.
Lincoln, that kind of pre-warned people from doing that. So
Yeah.
Well, I
Did you
heard Lincoln
find-
that Channel 9 got a cop to fine because we were catching abalone. Well, we were, getting abalone, but we were just diving in and getting them, and they were undersized. And I'd heard that the fisheries department chased Channel 9 over that one.
Really?
They
Yeah.
did by sheer coincidence. When I retired from the police force, and I got bored, so I went to work for the Department of Immigration, and I worked for a guy who used to be a fisheries inspector. And he said, "Oh, you were taking undersized abalone from Whalers Way." He said, "I investigated, and they made a decision in the end that publicity wouldn't be worth it."
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, I'd heard that.
I'd love to find out. Of course, we were discussing and planning Matt's, the brains behind this sort of next year in 2021, getting us all out to Whalers Way and kind of having you guys revisit this lovely location that you all have very fond memories of. I'll start. I'd love to get answers from everyone here. I'll start with you, David. I mean, where's your mind at with this? Kind of, are you thinking, wow, 20 years, perfect time to visit there? Or kind of you think, well, do I really want to go back there and, eat pig face and kind of steal abalone again?
I waver between both, to be honest. I wait. It goes back and forth because, there is, it took me a while to not think about the game for a while because I'd think about it all the time. And then, I stopped thinking about it, which was a relief. And in a way, this has been a bit therapeutic to revisit it, but I always I waver between the two. Then I think, oh, what am I thinking? This is crazy, but no.
Lance,
where's
you
your
want to live
chest
there?
at, David? David, where's your chest at?
I don't know. It was sold,
Yeah,
wasn't it? Did you buy it?
yeah.
That's
He's
right.
got it. You guys can play chess. We can bring it to Whalers Way. And...
we could have played.
We've got a photo of it. We've got a photo of it, David, which we'll put up on our social media. But yeah, Jeff Brown has your chess set.
You still got it?
Yeah.
Oh, good on
I've
you.
also got you know how you're allowed to take a luxury item? You took the chess set.
Yes.
Well, I've got a little bit of my luxury item left over. I can take that. Yeah, I haven't think what it was. the
toilet paper.
It's a valuable commodity in 2020,
that,
Jeff.
you know what's
Lives in Victoria.
Yeah.
It's interesting because when we had to nominate the luxury item, I nominated soap because I didn't like the idea of being unwashed. But they said no, you can't have that. So that was interesting that you got toilet paper.
Toilet paper got through the cracks. Wow,
yeah,
literally.
through the cracks.
Do they still do luxury items? Can you answer that, Matt? Do they still do people take luxury items in Modern Survivor?
Yeah, they ask you so before I went out there, they asked me what's one item. If I could get one item, what would it be? So we didn't start the game with it. Whether through it, obviously I wasn't there long enough, so I never got it. But so everyone sort of got asked what they wanted. So I think now what they do is at a certain point in the game, they get presents from home, like and they'll have, and I think that's when they probably get the gift then. It's not, but you certainly don't start off with the luxury item, no.
Which is a shame, because I always loved finding out what the luxury item was. That was always a fun little thing that I used to love that back in the day. Lance, you basically wanted to live out there in Whalers Way, as you just said, kind of there. So, I mean, I can imagine you're maybe champing at the bit to get back out there next year.
Well, I'm very keen. The reunion sounds like a great idea. I don't know if you noticed, I went to my cupboard. Does anybody recognise this?
Yes.
Oh, God.
We slept in these babies. I've kept mine, and it still has the smell of Whalers Way. I'll definitely be there. I mean, wherever. I mean, I had always wanted to go back to Whalers Way, and I never did. I used to catch up with Rob for a while, and he went back, and he went. I think he went back twice.
He stayed there overnight.
Yeah, and. So I'm really keen. I'm really keen to go back. So hopefully, I think it's a great idea. So, yeah, I'd love to be there. And
Sciona, I know you're there because you're wanting to play your young warrior in Tiddlywinks, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely! Can't wait.
Yeah, I
thought the location was just stunning. Certainly, when you got back from the coast, I know, and our camp particularly was, literally in the dirt, but. I suppose I've just spent a lot of time in the bush, and some of it's being able to see that beauty in the harshness and the dryness. I've flown over that country, particularly along the cliffs there over the ocean, and so I'm really keen to go back. I'd love to go back. I'd like to take my partner and go back. I'd like to. I guess catch up with people that had a particularly, for better or worse, and I really mean that for better, 20 years ago. It's not, see, I didn't grow up in the same area and went to the same school with people. There's no one in my life that I went to kindergarten with or even high school with. And so to go back 20 years and it was was a very intense experience, and the personalities were pretty much, bar a couple, were those strong type A personalities, desperately trying to win and do well, and I've put my hand up for it for sure.
Jeff, I know you're keen. You're counting down the days, aren't you? You want to be able to yell at the baby shit yellow people and go to Para. We'll recreate some classic moments for you.
I'm not like that.
No, that was all misleading editing.
It's all a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
So you're in for the reunion, Jeff?
Yeah, I am. I want to go fishing. The very first fish I ever caught was 2 down at Whalers Way. You throw the line in with a bit of those limpets or whatever they're called, cut up with a rock, put it on, and throw it in. I've got 2 fish.
Well, we'll be alternating days, Jeff. You can only go on one of the days, and the other people will go on the other, just to make it fair.
I wouldn't mind. I've always wondered what was on the other side of our camp. I know 3 sides, but I never down where the toilet was. Further down that way, I would like to have gone for a walk to see where it head, to see what we missed out on. Another thing I'd like to do. I'd like to go and drink some water out of that windmill, because I reckon we got conned. I reckon we could have been drinking it all the time. I don't think we had to boil it at all.
Yeah, well, I think it was fascinating learning from Stephen that the reason behind making you guys alternate was just because he thought it would be a fun idea. It wasn't actually anything, there wasn't a reason behind it. It was just like, this would be a cool idea to make them go different days. So, took the magic out of that.
We used to all go and get food at the same place, though. Both tribes went to the same fishing spot and crawled down that same cable.
Yeah, but on different days.
Yeah, but we all went to the same place different days.
Yeah, a part of it was also keeping you apart. A part of it was also making sure you didn't bump into each other. It's quite a limited space there at Wales Way.
But we could see their tracks down the dirt path when we walked down, so we knew they'd been down there before us.
That was actually just Sylvan dropping some of his roofies out of his pocket to make sure he got back there. Naomi, I guess we're all kind of going to give the similar answer here, but I mean, kind of what are your thoughts in terms of, again, revisiting Whalers Way? And we can get the bloody ship for you out there, maybe. We can kind of really make it special for you.
As long as I don't have to go there on a bloody ship, that's I'm in.
I'd like to see where the ship was. I'd like to see what
went back a couple of years after.
Wasn't the original plan to bring everybody into shore on a military submarine or naval submarine? Is that?
That may have been one idea.
Yeah.
And then the budget didn't quite go that far.
We ended up with the Port Lincoln school bus. That was actually the school bus.
Kerry Packer nipped that in the bud. Kerry Packer nipped that in the bud real quick when he realised how much that submarine was going to cost.
Lance was also asking about the location in terms of Broome. Was it Whalers Way or Broome? I mean, Broome was one of the ones that was tossed around. Kerry Packer was very keen to have us on his outback property, whatever that's called. And yeah.
That would have been fun.
But from memory, I'm pretty sure Stephen told me that Stephen, I think he's from Adelaide or had lived in Adelaide, and he was aware of these islands off the coast there. He wanted us all to go out to an island and stay there, and you would have been voted off the island. But they turned out to be so desolate and so hard logistically to get to and from, and everything had to be shipped in, shipped out. But
Tasmania's still an option if they're looking for Channel 10 season 8.
Again, too inhospitable, not hard to get to.
Yeah. Once you're out, you never go back. Yeah. Deb, did you mention? I hear you just mentioned that you went back to Whalers Way not long after.
I went back a few years later. I actually drove across with a mate of mine across the Nullarbor. We stayed with you, Sciona. I don't know if you remember. I think one night or something in Perth, and I went back through Whalers Way, and the ship's still there, or it was still there. I mean, it was a while ago.
Well, Naomi's not coming anymore.
I mean, it was sort of. I mean, I think from memory, it was sort of maybe not completely disassembled, but there's remnants of it. Wow. So who knows?
The bloody ship is bloody still there.
Are you in? Are you in for the reunion, Deb?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely. It'd be great to see everyone.
Fantastic. And Lincoln, you're hosting it, right? Have we told you this?
This is your gig, guys. I'm not showing up. But I'll be there. I mean, I haven't been to Port Lincoln or anywhere around there since then. I just want to see if Lincoln lingerie is still there.
Well, maybe we can get a photo of you in Lincoln lingerie. And we will find your favourite karaoke haunt, and we'll all get up there and we'll join you.
You know what? We all have to sing.
Yeah, well, I will. I'll gladly do it.
Summer Loving.
Yeah,
that's my go-to.
I'll just give us a bit of a rendition of it
we can do Islands in the Stream together.
I always have to have a duet. I have to have someone with me.
I was going to go for the singing route. I start going bum ba-dum ba-dum ba-na-na-na-na.
See, you can sing. You can sing, Ben.
Naomi,
sure.
you've got to stop saying this, all right? I don't believe this rubbish that you're saying that I'm singing. No. I mean, Deb can sing. We heard the famous 5. We can always get her singing that again.
Lincoln, if you are keen to do a bit of karaoke, we know the reunion's going to start on the Friday, but David and I are actually going to go down on a Thursday and get on the piss the night before, because that's what David does. So you can join us. We'll go to a karaoke bar.
I'll hang out with Deb. We can do some recce's, kind of just around Port Lincoln.
And I'll hang out with Jade and we'll do some cooking lessons.
Craig, you're maybe, are you the keenest of everyone here just to kind of get out there? Because you're going to go in game mode, aren't you? We'll get some games out there and just really get you competitive out there again.
I agree with what David says though. I'm definitely there. My wife's keen to come. I'd like to bring the kids and show them around, but I haven't been anywhere near the place since for no other reason that why would you go there? But I hope I'm not disappointed if I go. you know, it'd be interesting to go out and see where it was filmed and try and remember. I can vaguely remember the town, but it'd be,
you can vaguely remember it because you hardly saw it, but I saw all of it. That's all I had to do was run around.
True. Oh, I'll be there. I'll definitely be there. Won't miss it.
Is Katie coming? Has she expressed interest? I suppose she's a baby, so hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think she kind of was, you know, like, oh, it'll be fun to do, but obviously, you know, being a new mother and all, I mean, not kind of sure how it goes. I mean, look, I think kind of the plan, and Matt can probably talk a little bit more than I can, because Matt's, you know, been very much heavily involved in organising it, is to get whoever out there, you know, and it's obviously not just, you know, players, and of course, you know, you, Lincoln, is in the host, but even production crew, people who kind of were there, you know, it's kind of, yeah, Matt, talk please. This is your baby.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I know Karen's keen, and Karen actually, she had to work tonight, so that's why she didn't come on the reunion. She was keen, but unfortunately had to work, so she couldn't join us. But I know Karen's really keen for the reunion, and from the conversations I've had with Jane, she's really keen as well. And but she, you know, she's got a lot of young small kids as well, so I guess it will depend on that. But yeah, it'd be great to get everyone. It'd be great to get Lincoln. I really want you to get onto all the production people. You know,
there's about 50 crew. That's all the crew.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a couple of the producers have said they'll come.
Hey, Lincoln, did you listen to Matty Bronger?
I haven't yet. No, that's my next one on this. Was he good?
You know, like,
quite insightful. Yep.
Hair in the gate. You talk about that?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yes, he
He
did.
brought it up without even being prompted. Matt was very excited.
Yeah, I didn't know whether that was I was giving away state secrets there or not. But
no, it helped, and also, trust me, we learned some great things about Matty D here, about, you know, how hard it was to make him look good on camera as well. So, you know,
I'll just say
both, hasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just say too that Jenny Duggan, Tim's wife, she's really keen for the reunion too. So I guess that would be really great for Jenny to come down and see, you know, obviously what, you know, where Tim played the game and all that. So I think she's really looking forward to it. So, yeah, and even like Jack Robin, the composer, obviously he was married to one of the editors on the show. So try to get them down there as well. So, look, I think you know, we've got a good start, and it sounds like everyone's really keen. So
if you get Ben Dark, Matt, Ben Dark needs to join us. We need to find him again. We're still sadly missing Ben Dark. We don't know where he is, but see what he could have missed out on. I'd love to wrap this up with best memory that you all have from your Survivor experience. You know, it can be in-game, out of game, you know, whatever you want to kind of do it. I would love to hear, you know, 20 years on, the long-standing best memory you have from your entire Survivor experience. I'm going to start with you, Lincoln. You are the host. You are the host with the most. You are the thinking woman's crumpet, the man with the rope. What's your best memory?
Look, I think it's a general kind of memory, not one specifically, but what I found incredible was going into this. I mean, I just thought it was going to be great fun, and it was something that you know, it was just to be involved in Survivor. I thought was a great thing, and then as the game progressed, and you stood on that deck of the bloody ship, and you actually saw people's sort of lives as they were at that point, you know, being snuffed out. You can't help but get into it. You can't help but buy into that. And that moment when someone's game is finished, and you're actually, it starts to affect you, and you start to really feel stuff. And that's when I thought, this is kind of more than a game. It's more than there's way more going on here, because I found myself suddenly being part of it, and that was the biggest thing for me. I think that's when I realised it was, you know, this is it's unique.
And I would say, just quickly, Lincoln, on that before I throw to you, Deb, for your memory, I think it's really great to have you involved, not only in interviews that we've had you on, and just in this experience, because Matt and I talked a little bit off air that moving forward, when we cover the other seasons, this realistically will be the only reunion we have the host on with the contestants. I mean, God, if Dicko joins us, fantastic. If JLP joins us, fantastic. But realistically, it's not going to happen. So I personally, as someone who's a big fan of your season, I still think it's great that you kind of passionate enough about it to talk about it after all these years? Because I remember interviewing you, nearly 10 years ago and kind of digging you up on Twitter or something like that. And I re-listened to that interview recently as well, and kind of, I think you were in a bit of shock that someone was talking to you about that. At that point, it was only 10 years old.
Absolutely.
But here we are another decade later and we're still talking about it. So, yeah, I really admire that with you, that you still have this passion for it, and you still obviously hold it very dear to your heart that you had this experience.
Yeah. Look, I really appreciate, not know about the other guys, but for you guys to do this and dredge us all up and just have us talk about it again and give us a chance to actually, I don't know, just air it, get it all out there. I think it's great. And your defence of the season has been, there's things that dwell in the back of your mind, but you don't really want to say them because you sound like a wanker. That we have been forgotten, and these people did do this, and they should get recognition. And for you guys to do this, I think it's fantastic.
I'm fine to stand up and be a wanker. I've been a wanker my whole life, and and been doing it for
no,
a while
I really
now.
do. I really appreciate it.
Deb, what about you? What was your best memory from your Survivor experience?
Oh, look, I think it's hard to pinpoint, to be honest. It was just the fact that we got to do it and to be a part of it. I think it was a once in a lifetime, it'd be great if it was more than once in a lifetime, but experience of just, I love the kind of detachment of it. I love being out there with no contact with family and people and no phones, and just there was a freedom to it that, that was just amazing. And yeah, just so extraordinarily unique. And I think for me, it was just the whole experience of being there. Yeah.
Naomi, for you, was it the bloody ship?
No, definitely not. No, look, in all fairness to the ship, it's an inanimate object, but it was fine. We just were there too much. But I think for me it was, like just the great privilege in being, not only getting to play it, but being one of the first contestants ever in Australian Survivor, and also just the adventure. It just really appealed to me. It was, it was great. The whole process was exciting, and even getting selected and then getting out there and actually living it. It was an amazing adventure. Loved it.
You'll always go down in history as the first jury member in the history of Australian Survivor. They can never take that away from you. So there you go. And the reunion, I should say, will get you and Craig to spend another night together at Micro Station. So we'll recreate everything out there. Don't worry. We'll get there. Jeff, what about you? Your best memory from your Survivor experience?
Look, life's tough, and you can't understand where some people are coming from because we're all reasonably well off. We can afford food, water, etc. On Survivor, you wake up each morning with no water, with no food, and you know what it's like to live without water, and it's tough. And then after you try and scab water around somewhere, you've got to try and scab a meal and some of the crap you'll eat because you're hungry. And this experience has let me be hungry, and there was no food. And shelter the third. It goes water, food, shelter. Your shelter, well, we had none really. We had this tarp we'd throw over ourselves, but there's no shelter. So to live these experiences was absolutely fantastic. And then I worked in immigration where I used to issue visas to people, or not issue visas, depending on what the government wanted, to come in. And I knew where these people were coming from and what their pressures that were. Well, I've had all those experiences. If I didn't go on Survivor, I wouldn't have had, and I'm delighted to have had them.
Fantastic. Great answer. That's, wow, very insightful. Love that. Sciona, yourself, your Survivor memory, best Survivor memory.
Look, I'm with Deb and Naomi. Really, it was that experience. I don't think I can. I mean, the whole experience was the best. How many people get to go out and play a game like Survivor and in a pretty visually stunning sort of location, because that's what they're wanting for the audience. With other, in our case, 15 Type A personalities, all sort of. It is unique. I don't think I can pick out any bit of it that was. The whole thing just wrapped up. It was fantastic. I'm so glad that I got the opportunity. I met some amazing people and did something that the other said, is quite unique in the overall scheme of things. So, every part of it, it was so incredibly challenging and interesting, and I loved it. Yeah.
So the answer was the cherry ripes then. Is that what I heard?
Cherry ripes, yeah.
Perfect. Lance,
I didn't get a...
Lance, what about you? What was your favourite?
Well, I've had a little bit more time to think about it, but my mind just keeps bouncing. One thing. To say, what's your best thing? I'm just following up what Sciona said. I thought two things. One, the excitement of getting out of the bus on the cliff and being there. I thought that was exciting. The adventure was ahead of us. But I had a number of times, but one particular time when we'd caught fish, and I think we were still virtually a full team. And we were eating the fish on rocks and sharing and sitting down and eating a bit. And it just felt so tribal. And I know, and I often, to me, it was actually an oddly experience, because the whole thing is about knocking off people. And I think that's why people can get so upset, because you do share so much. You become dependent on each other. You share everything, and I think that tribal experience was really something very special. And then as I said, in that spot we're doing, I felt we were sort of, I don't think I have Indigenous roots, Aboriginal roots, but I felt very connected to the land, to the people, and to that way of living, and I just still with me.
Wow.
And I love what Jeff said, that be able to reflect on the preciousness of water and food and a grain of rice. I still remember going back to that first night, we all get kicked off, and geez, you turn a tap on and you got water, you almost forgot it, and then it's hot, and then opening a fridge and just being almost shocked by it. It was a very intense experience, but I think it resonates richly in all of us.
Fantastic! Wow, these are some deep answers. I'm loving these. David, top that. Go on.
Well, it's funny because you think that I don't know how many days it is, and you think, oh, I can do that. I go away for work, and I'm away from my family, but you're in a hotel room, and you have the mod cons. So that once you get into a situation that's really tough, that makes it hard. So you see, Craig's got his whippet there. It's a whippet.
Yeah.
And mine at the time when I was on Survivor was a spitting image of your whippet. And I loved him. And I remember being there cold, lying in the dirt, not sleeping, and just I'd get emotional thinking about my whippet. And I remember telling the psychologists at the time during the question and answer to get onto the show, and the psychologist said, I think you need children. And she was actually, and I hadn't thought of that before, but she was right. Like they're the greatest thing in my life. But what I reflect on is when things get tough, when you don't have all the mod cons, it makes it really tough. It makes it tough, and you get emotional over your family, and everything's tough. So I thought I would be stronger in that way, because I could be away from my family. But no, not when you've got all the mod cons. It's easy, but when it's tough, it's really tough. But there's no one memory that stands out. There's lots of memories. Because I'm looking at the screen now, I'm on my phone, and I see looking at Lance. And I remember when we got on the bus or on the plane, actually, that was interesting because we hadn't seen each other before. And you're going through the selection process, and you're doing your exams in the hotel, and you're looking around at everyone else, and at that point they're your competitors. and you're thinking, well, because you've got to get selected, and who are they going to choose? And I remember that and thinking, looking at them, and then this is your first time when you get on the plane or on the bus, you see, oh, here they are. These are the people they chose. And I remember sizing up Lance, and he had his Jesus T-shirt, and I thought, oh, here we go. He's trying to. This is strategic. He's got his Godbrother a T-shirt on. He's making me feel like I can trust him. So I'm onto him. I'm onto Lance. So I sized him up already. Sized up Katie. Katie, bit of a a bit of a firecracker with a haircut and a feet on the seat. And I said, get your feet down off the seat. Thinking to myself, who does she think she is? I've got you. I know what you're all about. So I remember all of that, but it all blends into one. It was a fantastic experience. I remember the first challenge, that was the Fizzle challenge. But, when you're there, it was windy, it was cold, there were massive bonfires. It was very surreal. It was like a scene out of Mad Max, and standing there thinking, what the hell am I doing? Where am I? What am I doing here? So that was unreal.
I really hope that
the whole thing was like that.
I really hope when people answer these questions in future seasons, we're not just going to get, oh, my favourite one was when I won the cake or something like that. Like, these are like full, deep, in-depth, amazing answers. And
You'll never do a better season than our season.
No, I really like celebrity season.
You have to move on to those really bad seasons.
Yeah, gosh. Craig, you get to close it out. You've had the most time to think about this, but you've also got a lot of things to top here with all of these answers.
Well, it's funny how my answers have changed since you first asked it to now. No, like when you first said it, I thought you meant in the context of the game. So I was like, shit. And I did, there was a highlight for me personally within the game. And I'm same as everyone else. I remember going back to, as Lance said, I remember going back to the room and having my first piece of food. And I cried and I was tearing up going, I'll never forget this. I felt like I knew what it was like to starve, but obviously, I didn't. It was only bloody 27 days, but I still remember those feelings as well. But if I had to put it down to one thing, it was really, I've always sort of said it was like a roller coaster ride. So it was everything. It was the setting myself up in a box, Mum and I driving up from Victoria, planning all that. It was waiting for every bit to get in, but it was the family. It was watching the excitement of my family and, my brother spending over $100 trying to get a Craig card out of the chips, all of those things, my brother and his T-shirts and friends, just the whole journey for everyone else and watching them. It was, yes, you were in the driver's seat and it was a great personal experience, but just watching what my family went through on the journey it was pretty neat to watch all that take place.
Fantastic. Wow. Great answers. That maybe, I'm saying it right now, they will be the best answers we ever get in that question moving forward. No pressure, Matt, for season 5 when we get to your season then.
I was hoping one of you were going to say the greatest thing was coming on ASA.
Yeah, well, clearly the experience didn't stay with them as much as we thought it would, Matt. Queen Jane would have said that. She would have.
And I'm still in shock that Craig Abbott and David Haas both have owned whippets in their lifetime. What's the odds of that? They've got more in common than we realise.
God, Dream Alliance, showmance could have happened. What can we say? Terrible that these things happen. Guys, I'm going to say this has been an absolute blast. Matt, I want to say to you, thank you for sort of, coming up with this a couple of weeks ago, this idea. It's sort of been something that we've only, again, late addition to the episode plan. And I think that moving forward with each season we cover, we will plan on doing something similar. This very much could be the most stacked. We haven't been, having said that, there's 24 people on bloody Channel 10 seasons. So, few more to choose from. But this has just been an absolute blast, kind of get you all in a room together and talk and share these experiences. We've all had fantastic interviews with you across this season. But I'm going to go around and thank each of you individually because, I want to waste more time. And I also feel it's the right thing to do. I'll go from bottom to top in terms of my screen right now, though. Craig, mate, pleasure. I joke, you message us all the time, you tell us about it, but I love it. I love hearing your thoughts whenever you listen to an interview and you kind of tell us, your opinions on things and just everything about it. It's been such a fascinating insight to kind of hear from you constantly. And it's great. And I really thank you for joining us here on the show tonight again.
Thank you both. It's been a pleasure.
David, Matt, you thank David. I feel out of place here. I feel, Matt, you need to thank David here.
Yeah, no, look, David, I stick by what I say, mate. You're an underrated player. You're before your time, and to be honest, it's it's been fantastic talking to all ears, and it's a I really think we've all got a friendship out of this, and you've made me feel like for someone that applied for your season and didn't get on, that I'm still being a part of your season in a way. So I thank you all for that. But David, mate, I really do think you're before your time, and I appreciated watching you play, mate. And it was I love the fact that you didn't like niceness, as you put it. So it was one line I'll always remember. And mate, just thanks for applying and getting on and sharing your 9 days out in Whalers Way with us all.
Fantastic. Thanks, fellas, and thanks for organising all of this. I actually can't believe both of you were so into this. I didn't think anyone was. So fantastic job.
Yeah. We're getting therapy. I just quickly too, before I thank you, Lance. Good news, Craig. Craig kind of threatened to not be on this episode until Matt Dyson released a certain audition tape that we've teased all season. We've said, when we get to 1,000 likes on Facebook or Instagram, he will release it. Now Matt has done a very kind thing and has given me his audition tape. And I will say right now, we will be releasing that in the following week. So, Craig, your threats have worked. You will get to see an 18-year-old Matthew Dyson apply for Survivor and clearly see why he didn't get on.
Can I just say that Ben actually didn't believe it was me. That's how much I look different to when I was 18. It is me. I did have hair at one stage, but Ben, at first he thought it was a joke that I was actually sending in someone else's video, but I can assure you, it is an 18-year-old Matt Dyson in that video.
Yeah, true story. Lance, mate, always a pleasure. I've had a long history with you, similar to Lincoln and Deb. Previously had you on former shows of mine as well in the past. So it's always great to get you on and chat. And also, really thank you for all your help and connections that you've been able to help us without this season. Without you, we wouldn't have had Jane, we wouldn't have Sophie on the show. So, really thank you very much for that. And keep up the great work too with communities as well. You're doing fantastic work with that, and we'll be keeping an eye on that, obviously, moving forward as you push forward with it in the future.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure to be. It's fantastic seeing everybody, by the way. I'd love to just sit and just keep talking to everybody, but we can catch up individually off air.
And happy birthday too.
Yeah.
I don't know if we all
happy
can we sing him a happy birthday? Everyone?
You can.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday
to you.
It really doesn't work over Zoom, does it?
That was the worst ever.
I'm not doing islands in the stream with Lincoln, I can tell you
Naomi, that's the correct response to my singing.
I was just imagining if Rob was here and he was singing it, and it gets to the point where he would say Lance of Arabia.
Yes, Lance of Arabia, yes. Sciona, we only had you on a couple of weeks ago. I hold the badge of young warrior honor to me so close. We have two young warriors on this episode right now. I'm glad that I'm in Craig's esteemed club. It's a shame we don't have Joel on, but it's always an honor to talk to you, Sciona. It's only the second time I've talked to you, but it's still an honor. So really appreciate you joining us here tonight as well.
Hi guys, look, I did think about it, as we discussed, and I'm so glad that I engaged with it, because there's been so much for me that you guys have brought memories, and as you know, I lost my mother fairly recently, and she's was an avid Survivor fan, and it's just been really, really special, and reconnecting with Craig. Wow. We always had a connection, and then life goes on, and so that's been very special, and Lance has reached out, or we both have, I guess, really, and that's very special. So I'm looking forward to Whalers Way again. Can't wait. So thank you both very, very much for all the, I don't know, God knows how many hours you guys put in. This is one thing, but what goes in before and after, I just cannot imagine. So well done. Thank you so much.
I will say it is 5:02 a.m. at the moment where I am, so I might answer that question for you, Sciona. Jeff, mate, again, pleasure to have you on the show. You're always fun. I words cannot express the words that you say sometimes, and it's fantastic. So thank you very much, Jeff, for joining us, and I really look forward to joining you with some shenanigans in Whalers Way next year.
And can I just quickly say, Jeff, too, I was quickly saying thanks for it taking me 6 months to track you down. You were the hardest man on this planet to track down, but I nearly gave up. Ben. But honestly, Jeff, I'm so glad I'm so glad I didn't, and that I didn't give up in that 6 months, mate, because it's to hear that you're still a fan of the show now, and you're a character, mate. You know how to spin a yarn, and it's I'm just so glad that we got back in contact with you.
No, thank you very much. I'll have to make some inquiries to see how you slipped through the catch. You didn't find out where I am. I thought I had enough checks and balances in place that people couldn't find out.
Wow.
But takes a big effort to make things happen, and nothing happens unless you get off your backside and make it happen. And you two guys have done it. And I personally appreciate it. I know from hearing other people talk so do they, but from my point of view, it's been really great. I do appreciate your effort. I appreciate what you've done. And thank you very much. And I can't wait till we perhaps meet in Whalers Way or somewhere else. And I promise to be nice.
Good. Yes, that's the one promise. Naomi, from a Carlton fan to another, we've got a lot in common. I enjoy our little post-football chats constantly. Hopefully things will get a little bit better and we can live up to some potential. But outside of football, pleasure to have you on. Pleasure to learn more about the bloody ship as always. And we really appreciate your company on the show tonight as well.
Oh, thank you, Ben and Matt. Thank you both so much for not just tonight, but for doing this for all of us. I think we're all extremely grateful and humbled, and it's been a joy really to relive it. I think for many of us, as you've sort of identified, we've kind of pushed it aside a little bit. You've really brought life back to what was a pretty great experience for all of us 19 years ago. So thank you so much. Really.
And Naomi, I just can't wait till the day that we have to break the news to Ben that he's getting kicked off as host as ASA and you're coming on in his place. So,
Oh, okay.
Sure. We'll discuss that later.
Wow,
all right.
That happened fast. I was about to say that we'll let you know when David Jeanette's on in a few years' time, but hey, you'll apparently be interviewing him, so that's why, clearly. Deb, same with you. Always a pleasure. I mean, I mentioned with Lance, I obviously had the honour of chatting with you a few years back on the Oz Network, so kind of, it's been great to kind of remain friends, keep in touch, and kind of, get you here to chat because, you're a mad, passionate fan about the show still to this day. It's great. You have that unique distinction of that great photo of you and Pia kind of bridging the two eras together, which was, one of our most liked photos across our social media. People loved seeing that. So I admire your passion. I love your absolute fandom for the show, and it's always a pleasure to have you on the show as well.
Cool, guys. Thank you. And just, repeating everyone's sentiments, but honestly, thank you for, showing the love. It's so nice to sort of have these memories brought back up, and so great to see everyone. I really, I think it'll be a wonderful get together next year. So, yeah, it's going to be great.
Any last chance of a quick little Famous Five sing along or no? Have to try.
Timmy the dog.
Timmy the bloody dog. Lincoln, mate, and to you, I think it was about 10 years ago nearly that I first spoke with you. I think it was a random Twitter message thinking like, he's not going to want to talk to me, and, here we are. And, a lot of fun always, and such a great insight. And again, as I was saying before, your passion and everything for this show still to this day, because you've gone on to bigger and better things. Unfortunately, this show didn't quite, keep you in that hosting chair, which I think you're actually quite happy about anyway. But
Exactly.
a pleasure to have you here and kind of have you join in with these group of people that you kind of controlled for 39 days.
Yeah, look, thanks, guys. And it has been really good. I mean, becoming friends, really. And I'd look forward to the time that we can actually share a beer and be in the same room together at some point. But and I think what you've done is basically made us all go back to that time, relive that time a little bit, and feel better about that time. So, thanks for that.
You are most welcome, Matt. We usually kind of cut it now and do a closing, but I'm going to keep this just in play because we're recording video for the first time and releasing this for the very first time. So I'm just going to wrap this up now. Next week, I will say quickly that we will have one final episode. It will just be a general wrap of the season. We will be joined by Cable and Matthew Carr just to kind of go over things that we maybe haven't discussed. We've got some listener questions that we'll touch on and kind of cover everything else off to close off season one, because it's a sad little moment, I feel, where we're kind of closing off season one. We've got to talk about Celebrity Survivor now. Yay, the one that half of us don't think is a real season. But it's been a fun ride, so tune in for that. Matt, I'm just going to say right now, my name is Ben Waterworth. Thanks for tuning in to everyone, and I'm going to give you the honour to close off an episode properly with anything else. Tell people where to listen and subscribe. See if you remember all that. Let's really... You think Naomi can host this? I'm sure she can, but let's see if you can host it, mate. Go on, Mr. 2 Days on Survivor.
You can find us on all good podcast services. How about that? But what I will say, I'm a bit more concerned about going into season 2. I've got to find a new man crush. I can't talk about David Haas anymore.
David Oldfield.
Maybe
David Oldfield.
David Oldfield.
Justin Melby, who knows? But
overrated.
In all seriousness, I'll just quickly say, Lincoln, obviously you're the host, mate. You did a great job. It's great that you still want to be a part of it now. Like some other people could say, I was getting paid to do that. I've moved on. But it's great that you still like to talk about it. And I really appreciate it. And I thank you, Lincoln. For the rest of you guys, it was a pleasure watching you. Like I said before, I would have loved to have been able to be a part of it with you. I was lucky enough to get to play, 18 years later. But I really do wish I got to play with you guys, and I hope that we brought back some good memories, and it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And for all our listeners out there, until next time, we've got one more episode to see out this season, and then we go into Celebrity Survivor. But I'm sure you'll all enjoy the conclusion episode. My name's Matt Dyson, and this has been a fantastic reunion podcast.